Hello there! Welcome to the ReZero podcast. I'm your host, Wolf. You may know me as the voice actor for Subaru in our Arc 5 readings of the ReZero web novel, here on Studio Reverie. Today, we will be analysing and discussing Arc 7 Phase 2 of the ReZero web novel. Please note, if you're an anime only, or have not read up to this point, there will be huge spoilers for you in this episode. So this is your first and last warning to get out of Dodge, so we don't ruin your future ReZero experience. With that out the way, my wonderful co-hosts, please introduce yourselves.
I am Gold, and I am the voice actor for Roswell, Ferris, and also Sirius. And I'm here to give a serious discussion on today's phase of Arc 7.
Gold, that's the name of the imposter. I'm the chameleon.
Oh my god, you're so right.
I'm Connor. You probably honestly know me as just one of the co-hosts of the podcast at this point more than anything else. And I am I'm the one who's been since the longest since I've properly read this, so forgive me on a couple of the detail slips that come up through it. I tried to skim through it all before this again, but I'm still psyched to talk about it. I haven't had anyone to talk about with this before.
Yeah, and we, ladies and gentlemen, have a lot to talk about today. Like, perhaps too much.
Indeed, even though I think this is one of the shorter phases.
Yeah, it seems to be that way from what I've seen.
Oh, it definitely is. Yes. This is probably the shortest one.
It does not feel that way. Gonna be honest.
Yeah, I mean, we can just jump right into it that this phase, the pacing is a little harsher than phase 1 was. It moves a little bit slower. It kind of drags on in places. And there's some structural issues with the pacing that we should probably just get out of the way right off the bat, so we don't have to harp on it too much later.
Yeah, might as well discuss this now, just so it's out the way and we've got our criticisms out the way. We can talk about the positives.
So in this phase, Tappei was experimenting with a new sort of narrative structure to try out, of building up to a certain context point, almost like the beginning of a heist movie, right before they lay out the plan. And then it cuts to the resolution, which honestly, in both of these when they do it, I think that flowed just fine, and I was able to pick up what happened pretty smoothly. And then he made the decision to go back and reestablish all the steps to get to where he jumped to.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is definitely heist-like in that way, and it was in details and I would say in a way that wasn't structurally clever enough to justify it. You know, the content of the flashback didn't give you any additional context or that much additional information that you really needed. Like, usually when you're telling a story, you probably want to tell only the most truncated version of it, or the version of it that is like closest to the completion of it, right? You don't want to like give too many extraneous details when you can tell give them the shortest distance that they need in order to tell a complete story. And this was like, okay, we're getting on that path of like the pacing is, getting to just exactly what we need to know, and then he kind of flubbed it just by experimenting on this, and it's a bit weird. I
will give Tappei this. I do admire the experimentation. I think if there's any place to do it, it's in the rough draft of the story that is the web novel. But it for me really did not work and really dragged on the end of the arc and didn't feel very sequential or natural.
The build-up wasn't even natural to like where it ended, right?
Yeah. I honestly feel like if all of this build-up had either been even just one chapter, or it was used as side content, I think that would be a bit better.
Yeah, so that's kind of the bizarre part here, in that he did make the decision to move some of the things that could have absolutely been as like that flashback-esque, or even just happening somewhere else to side content, and then did the reestablishing here in the main story. But, I mean, thankfully, I'm pretty sure, and we discussed this right before we started, that a lot of that pacing issue was resolved in the light novel version. So in the final draft, that at least the second flashback was removed.
I have heard that at least this element of like flashback has been removed from the light novel. So we at least like in terms of if there's perhaps an anime adaptation in the future, which I'm uncertain of, but in that sense, I think in terms of structure, it will be a lot smoother. We'll be cutting off a lot of the chaff here.
But we're getting ahead of ourselves a little bit, aren't we?
Yes.
So now let's go back and get to the point where we needed to.
Isn't it funny how that
time.
works? Yeah. Now let's get back to how we got here. Okay. Just like a heist movie.
Yeah, we pick up with Subaru having died at the end of phase 1, right? That's the ending that it's presenting to us at the start.
Yeah, that brother gone. Except that brother ain't gone. Apparently.
Yeah, he's definitely not gone. He's awoken.
He kind of wakes up here. We have like a bit of an interesting little pre-chapter thing talking about like how Subaru feels about himself, kind of progressing from how he's felt about himself in Arc 6. Honestly, the sequence was really well written. Gave me kind of chills. It was really interesting to see a more metaphorical example of how Subaru feels about his identity.
Yeah, there's an eloquence that Teppei really does when he gets into like these sort of, I would say, like surrealistic depictions of feelings, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's sort of his jam. He really gets to it really often.
That's where he's at his best in terms of writing, and it worked really well here, isn't it? A kind of like introduction sequence to this phase, I think.
I think I actually kind of disagree on it working super well. I think it's still super well written, but considering that the last chapter at that point, and this, granted, I read this before it was in proper phases, like it is now, but the end of the last one already had him waking up and seeing the success. So starting off kind of pretending like he's in that mid-consciousness state of going back and resetting again, I just didn't believe it. And it kind of just immediately not set me off, but slowed down the chapter even at the start.
That's fair. I guess that may be it, like kind of like in how we differently consumed it.
I'm also pretty sure it's meant to more be like he's in this weird like sickly fugue state and he can't really tell if he's dead or if he's not, if he's alive, and how will he gonna move on from this. And then he just he does waking up with a girl on top of him, Louis. And of course, Rem is right there as well. He's kind of surprised by this.
Yep,
and
the Shoerock did succeed.
Yep, exactly. And he's kind of asking questions about it. And very quickly, it's kind of revealed that the Shoerock burned down the encampment that they were a part of. Jamal and Todd's group of soldiers.
Yeah, the Imperial forces.
What did I say? The Imperial forces, right? And then enters the man, or Mazzelda right first, right?
Yes.
Well, this is also where Subaru does quick point. He realizes that his hand has lost like the curse look to it.
Yes.
We kind of went over that briefly.
Yeah, it was. We did go over this last time, but it just kind of peels off.
Mm-hmm.
I will say one thing that I really enjoyed about this phase overall is that there feels like a lot of continuity of the rest of the story because Subaru is constantly thinking about how stuff relates to his experiences so far. So we get a lot of continuity in that sense, and that's something I think we'll discuss a bit more as we go forward. But stuff like that was really well integrated into the chapters, so I'm excited to get more into it.
So here's where Mazzelda comes in, checking up on Subaru and making sure that he's recovered properly, and seemingly a lot more familiar and courteous with him than she was the last time they were speaking.
Yeah, quite funnily.
She has a new respect for him, I think.
Yeah, quite funnily, Subaru even kind of like mentions to himself, like, wow, this is the first person that I've made a good impression on the first time in meeting.
Yeah, no, that is true.
And it was both a compliment to himself and a big derision, because, oh my god, he's right.
Yeah, that's a part of this arc for sure as well. Sort of self-derision.
And then after Mazzelda, Abel comes in wearing the equivalent of blackface.
Yeah, that's funny.
He's got a racist Oni mask on, covering his face instead of the wrappings, which, I mean, it's an improvement, but still.
I mean,
he doesn't know what Rem is.
Yeah. This
is offensive. Right. She doesn't know.
She doesn't even know. That makes it even like another stage of fucked up if you really think about it. And now, seemingly, all of the Shoerock are acting with a big amount of respect towards Vincent or Abel.
We'll just go with Abel.
We will go with Abel.
Let's nip that in the bud. This character is Abel.
Yes, this character is Abel.
Everything that's written says Abel, okay?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Subaru gets a little bit bitchy about this and pulls out his real name. It's like his full legal name. And Abel's like, stands up to the table and he's like, hey, that's disrespectful, bitch. And then Subaru's like, yeah, I'm not going to be a stubborn little boy. I'm just going to call you Abel. And so for the rest of the story, we will call him Abel.
Remind me, is this the discussion where they're making the point of Subaru being upset that they attacked the other village unnecessarily?
Yes.
Okay.
And basically, Vincent kind of derides this, and of course, Subaru has this sort of, he always has this biting tone with people when he feels like he's righteous in a situation, right? He kind of like, oh, you're really, I hate, like, you're really nasty, right? He kind of says like mean things like that to people when he disagrees with them. And Vincent counters being like, what did you really think was going to happen? Like, do you think that this conflict could end without bloodshed, right? And he's really like pressing Subaru about it, and Subaru like instinctually almost like is like, I'm sure there was a way, right? There's a way that only I had to suffer, right? And Vincent's like, it's interesting how you conceal your own heart with a deception called charity, right? Mm-hmm. He really, like, I think in a way Vincent's right, or Abel is right here, in which a lot of the true feelings that Subaru holds are kind of masked by this sort of overwhelming idea that he can be some sort of like great and like giving person in like every situation, right?
Well, he wants to prove himself to be the hero that Rem like tasked of him.
Yeah, especially right now. Yeah,
that's how he's formed his identity. That's kept him going through this entire time. So now it's being challenged. Subaru is really struggling with how to reconcile that, especially because Subaru is not directly refuting what he says either. This is very important to talk about. Subaru, in a lot of his own like inner dialogue, agrees with what Abel is saying logically, but emotionally disagrees. And this is where we get into more of, I think, the ideological discussion part of this phase.
Yeah, we'll definitely get to that.
Yeah.
So he, talks about, like, how could Vincent know what Return by Death has saddled Subaru with? Because Subaru, for his point, has like this ability to kind of, in his mind, perhaps fix everything very neatly if he just dies a few times. Like, that's a responsibility that he feels like he definitely has, right? He's like, well, maybe if I die, then I can fix all this, right? And really, like, he's starting to recognize the fact that, like, this situation that's going on right now, like, all of the witch-based casualties that he's seen, even in, like, the Water City of Pristella and stuff like that, the Battle Against the White Whale, the casualties here are greater than that, right? And
expectedly, at least, yeah,
that he's thinking, right? He's like, this is going to be greater than any of those things, and the enemies here are just people. And he kind of thinks about the fact that, it's weird how he can think about like those beasts or witches or archbishops as different beings, right? He never had to really come to terms with the idea that, like, he's fighting
ending lives.
Yeah, he's fighting people that are like actually people, right? Like, at this point, he comes to dehumanize these people, right? These foes that he fights up to this point.
And I think this is actually a rather clever writing decision from Teppei, because up until this point, I had the opinion that Teppei kind of felt the same way as Subaru.
Yeah, that's easy to kind of... Yeah, it's easy to, like, frame your character as only having foes that are, like, subhuman, right? So then, you, like, when they kill them or whatever, you don't have to feel bad about it. Like, that moral weight's kind of lifted off your hero's shoulders, right?
Yeah, and that mindset has been biting him in the ass since this arc began, because the very first thing that goes wrong is he treats Louis, an archbishop of gluttony, like an inhuman monster and tries to abandon her alone.
Objectively she's not, right? Like, she's just like an innocent child, effectively.
Effectively, yeah.
And this is especially, like, I think difficult considering Subaru's resolution and answers to Louis at the end of arc 6, where Subaru has confronted in his mind this, like, almost animalistic natural evil, and now he's coming to terms with the fact that this is a person, and whether or not she has the experiences that this previous Louis has had, it's very much a question as that Subaru is definitely not understanding that he is morally in the wrong for just persecuting her, right?
He at least starts to ease up on her a bit from here.
Right.
He I think there's multiple points throughout this phase where he just like he thinks in his head like about this, right? About the evils of archbishops and witch beasts and witches in particular.
Yeah, because he mentions witches as this as well. It's like witches he didn't really have to deal with because he was like, oh, these. In Arc 4, you hear him say like, oh, you guys truly are despicable monsters beyond human comprehension. Yeah.
I think this is now the point in the story where these ideas that Subaru has about these people is going to be challenged, and it's going to be challenged very hard. And I think it's going to be really interesting to see how Subaru feels about his actions in the previous parts of the story once he reconciles with that.
Well, ultimately, we know that he does just accept it, even if he immediately tries to run away from being confronted with that. He does realize that I'm not willing to end my life and go back and save those people.
Yes, and this is here's what did I write about it? I was really interesting because it like Abel was positing this almost as like a decision that Subaru has made, in the sense of Subaru has his ideals and he has what the people who he loves and who love him like want from him, and Subaru has put that on a scale. He's weighed them, and he's weighed the love of his loved ones above his heroic ideals.
Yeah, protecting Rem is more important than protecting the idea that Rem has of him.
Yeah,
and also, you know, Vincent brings up an interesting point in like saying, or Abel, sorry, brings up an interesting point when talking about this. He basically, in a practicality sense, like you look at Abel and you think like, okay, well, this guy is very extreme in his ideology, right? But what he's saying is very simple when you kind of strip it bare of any context, perhaps. Like later on in the arc where he's like, yeah, I'll just poison these people, right?
Like, I mean, Abel's not even wrong in this conversation. Like, there's a major conflict here. People have opposing ideals, and they're willing to come to blows with it. That means someone is going to lose their life and come
so you have to decide which one you believe in better, you know?
This is the problem, because Subaru is so stubborn about this. I think he then has to reconcile with the fact he's already made a choice. He's already chosen a side. He doesn't get to go back on that, right?
I mean, he could, but he's choosing.
That's what he's thinking. That's the issue. He's like, I have returned by death, so I technically could renege on this deal, perhaps, like this entire situation.
Yeah. But ultimately, even if he does, I mean, we can speculate on this at this point. No matter what route he goes down, once one of these camps learns the location of the other one, then they burn it down.
Yeah, exactly. 100%.
This is an inevitable conflict at this point. There is no preventing it, I think, quite safely to say. Despite Subaru's pacifist heart wanting that to be true.
That's a theme in this arc as well, that there's like some things that your power, your return by death especially, can't fix. Yeah.
Well, there's another point on that I'll definitely get into later on, of something that it can't fix.
Yeah, exactly.
And rather interestingly, I think with that, we can kind of like discuss how that means that Subaru now has to reconcile with stuff that he's not had to think about up until this point in the story, right? Where he has to make conscious ideological decisions that put other people's lives ahead of other people. At this point in the story, he's been just a hero that's trying to save everyone. But now you have to put value on people's lives, and there's nothing
he hasn't had to pick a side yet in any real way. Like, even though he's been, you know, sequestered in different camps, right? Thus far, there's been no inter-party conflict. There's been no interpoliticking. He hasn't had to say exactly what his belief is, aside from interpersonal relationships, you know? He hasn't had to been like, oh, these people are right, these people are wrong, you know?
The only time he's had to come close is confronting Roswell in Arc 4 and saying, like, I don't agree with your ideals and I'm going to go against you.
But that's very personal as well. You know?
And that's Subaru saying what he doesn't, like, what he disagrees with. But up until this point, we've not really understood what he wants as this sort of ideological thing. And I think a point kind of Abel is almost getting across here is that Subaru's ideological devotion is weak. He doesn't really believe in his ideology. It's convenient for him.
It's just how he was brought up and raised. It's not even really like a conviction that he has. It's just something that
how he sees
when
the
you
world.
Just grow up in the modern world, you just are taught and kind of know that hurting people is wrong always. Like, violence is never the answer. Zero tolerance policy for fighting.
It's not even
that
violence
sort of
as the last resort, it's violence as never the answer. But then that gets into the question of how can people defend themselves if violence is never the answer?
By running away
By
when you're
running
confronted
away.
with your issues and leaving immediately.
Exactly. So yeah, they talk about that, and basically, Subaru kind of just gives up on talking about morals because he knows that it's a losing battle, right?
Yeah,
he's
not
like,
gonna
I
win
actually
it.
can't, I actually don't know. Like, pretty much, he missed this by action. He's like, I just don't know. I just want to bring Rem home, and like, if this was another person's life in this situation, he'd be excited to see what happens next. You know what I mean? But in reality, as he's living this, he's like, I literally couldn't care what's going on in the situation. I just want to be home, right?
Yeah. He doesn't have a political stake in this at all.
Exactly. But yeah, he realizes that he could try to actually lead the nation, and he wants to go to the nearest town or village, and he'll try to pick the path that he wishes to walk, whether it's easy or difficult. And he's like, I'm just going to move on from this, and I'm going to remove myself from it, even if it's difficult, even if it's easy. I'm just going to leave, right?
Mm-hmm. Avoid the problem at this
Yeah,
point.
exactly.
I will note Subaru is polite to Abel here at the end and actually thanks him for helping to rescue Rem. Seemingly, at least how it came across to me in the text, Subaru has this level of fear to Abel and the idea that his ideals are just completely opposite to what he feels, and he knows that's going to challenge that. But he has a level of respect for Abel, I think, at least as his competence. So
I think it's interesting. This arc has a lot of moments where Subaru is starting to like disagree with people, but then respect them at the same time, right? Yeah. And that's like a new feeling because if he disagrees with somebody, right, instead of just respecting that they have a disagreement, he usually is like, okay, now I have to change this person's mind, right? That was his entire MO before, right?
Well, usually. And that's the case when he has to deal with anyone that he disagrees with on like a personal view and wants to change their mind. But the occasion with Roswell and the other candidates, he does still come up against their beliefs, especially regarding Amelia, but does end up having that respect for them. In any case. And
yeah, Subaru makes the case that he doesn't want to be involved in some civil war. And as Subaru's thanking Abel and is about to leave, the text kind of refers to Abel as this lonely emperor, like sitting by himself. That there's no one there to meet his level. I thought was just an interesting thing to mention.
It's not subtle that Subaru, even if he doesn't realize it himself, is seeing himself in Abel, at least in some regard.
Yeah, very much.
That they're in similar paths.
In that sense, I think Abel was the perfect foil for Subaru.
Oh, literally the perfect foil.
Because
in every way that he needs right now.
Yeah. And this is the challenge not only that I think he needs in terms of character development and story, it was like at the perfect time in the story. Right after his conclusions from Arc 6, those are being smashed. Like literally broken apart right now. And
because, comparatively, right, Abel, wins the hearts and minds of people, and he is strong in his convictions and is steadfast in it, and will do what he wants to reach the ends that he thinks is right for the sake of people that he cares about, right? And or like the nation that he cares about in this instance, right?
Yeah.
And like it's the same with Subaru in a lot of ways. Subaru always like will shove aside things that are difficult in order to take what he wants, like the path forward, right?
Yeah.
And we're seeing that in contrast to that, Vincent, like he confronts things head on, right? He confronts every challenge head on, and with like a more, I would say, like pragmatic like way, right?
Yes.
Yeah,
definitely more pragmatic. But like he has a very like I would say
it's like an unstoppable force. Like once something's in Abel's way, it doesn't matter how cumbersome it is. He's determined he's going to get past it.
Yeah.
No matter what has to happen.
Because he sees something past that. This is a rather we'll talk about it more as we go through to the next chapters, but there's definitely something more to Vincent here than just cold pragmatism.
He's very forward-looking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
he has this sort of wisdom about him.
I'd almost say like a progressive, like a visionary, like a reformer, almost, to that level.
I don't know if I would go to that regard, but I have other views and context for Abel here that you two
We
probably
don't
don't have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I definitely think that he's forward looking, he's moving towards a goal that he has, and he's willing to do what it takes to get there.
Yeah.
And Subaru is the same, but Abel's willing to do things for himself and for others, whereas Subaru is
Only willing to do
usually
things for others.
for himself is for the sake of others. Yes.
Yeah. And as Subaru packs this up and he's decided I'm taking Rem and regretfully Louis, and I'm getting out of this country, Subaru is surprised by how the Shudrak teach him, because of his genre savviness, he thinks of a culture like this and he immediately thinks, oh, they're going to shame him for running away. But no, the Shudrak honor him. They consider him like a warrior on the same level. They say, we're not going to shame you. They consider him a comrade that's shown like the brightness of his soul, and they think he is being the warrior he needs to be by protecting Rem and Louis. It was such a wholesome moment I was not expecting.
Yeah, the Shudrak are great. Even though a few of them are actively sad to see him go, they are still helping him out with this awesome little Rem carrying basket that he put together for him.
Pretty nifty device, must say.
It's very unique, the device. But yeah, basically they get an escort too as they leave.
With
Holly
and
and
Kuna.
Yep, join them along, and they have a cute moment as they're heading to Goral, or whatever it's called. What is it called? Goral. Yeah, Goral. And we kind of learned that Holly and Kuna were born on the same day, and that's why they're so close.
Yeah,
and
they're
Rem is
basically
like
soul sisters.
Yeah,
exactly. And Rem is like, I wish I had somebody like this. While, and then Subaru can't help himself. Yeah.
Doesn't Subaru say that he's the oldest of like the family at some point in these chapters?
So this is I actually wrote down like the full context. This is fucking hilarious. Subaru's claims he has the special characteristics of being spoiled as the youngest and also as being raised strictly as the eldest because he's an only child. And then
that's very fair.
He sadly thinks maybe now that he's not there, he might have a younger sibling that he'll never meet.
Yeah. That is sad.
Yeah. I mean, let's be honest, Subaru is a strong middle child, though.
Yeah. Like, in terms of actually, like, if we're going to talk...
personality.
Middle child. But I thought that was a really interesting segment that I could not ignore.
Yeah. When I was reading this, if I remember right, I was thinking that he has both the feelings of being a younger and an older sibling when comparing to Rom or Beatrice. Because, like, he refers to, like, one as the younger sister type.
Yeah.
And he actively calls Rom older sister.
Yeah.
It's not...
Yes, I know what you mean.
It's not nothing, but it's hard to come up and think about that for Subaru when Rem is literally right in front of him.
Yeah, exactly. He's getting the impression, like, there's a family missing here. And actually, in this arc, there's, like, a lot of allusions to, like, pairings of siblings, as we'll get to. Or, like, people who are...
I was definitely going to bring that up when we met the next pair.
Yes.
Yeah. So
as we we're moving on, and Rem just suddenly out of nowhere, and like seemingly a big leap in their relationship, at least from what we've seen so far, asks Subaru about her memories and like if she has a family, and then she kind of concludes that she still doesn't fully trust him. So they're like, oh, okay, we'll talk about this later. Kuna and Holly are setting up a fire for this deer they've just killed, and Holly has no fucking clue how to cook it at all. Kuna can't do archery. She's worse than the Utaka, whatever her name is. Utakata, the child of the tribe. But she's basically the spotter of this sniper and spotter duo with Holly and Kuna. She has amazing eyes, she's got really good knowledge and wisdom, and that's how she balances out Holly's pure raw strength with the bow.
Yeah, Holly's kind of a beast.
Yeah.
Let's just not sugarcoat that.
Yeah, it's fucking terrifying.
Strong.
She one-shots this deer that they're hunting in the heart, like just one arrow, like boom.
You know what's very interesting? I think like the power scaling of like quote unquote normal people in this arc is like getting pretty crazy.
Yeah.
Like, it's just like, okay, there's this tier of people, and then there's a tier above that, and there's a tier above that, and then there's...
Yeah, so here we're kind of learning that there is a middle tier. So like you have people, say Subaru or Abel, who are on this tier of people who are not that physically ridiculously powerful. And I would honestly probably put Kuna in this as well.
Yes.
And then you get up to the next stage where you have the autos, the hollies, maybe Rem and injured Rom together would also be in this level. Yeah. But we also have what we know exists, like these divine generals and the Reinhardts.
Yes.
They're like above that.
Yeah.
I mean, he's in his own tier, but like the other heroes we've learned so far are kind of in that upper level.
And this makes me think back to, Subaru's gate breaking back in Arc 4, and we talked a bit in the Magic episode about the flow technique, right? And how characters can be so physically strong in this world. And it because of that gate breaking, Subaru does not have really access to that technique, does he, like, himself?
Well, I don't think that is true. I believe just being in the world, you do bring in mana naturally, and that does just empower you as you go.
Yeah.
That specific technique would be locked away from him, though.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Mana in this world is synonymous with almost any sort of strength. Yeah. Usually. It's like mental, physical, like spiritual, like it is your everything. And it when you have like too little mana, you can't sustain yourself and you die, That's how it is.
Yeah.
And there's creatures that are made entirely out of mana. It's like, like mana is strength that the world gives you, pretty much, right?
Yeah. And as we're going through this arc, we're definitely expanding our view of like what strength is in this world, and just in terms of world building in general, we're learning so much.
Oh, you have no idea.
It's like, I am so fucking excited to see where this goes, because I am really intrigued by what Tappei is like dropping in little crumbs here for me.
You definitely have you definitely have a limited view of how strong people are through Subaru's exploits in this story. Yeah. I think like the normal, normal or sort of just regular warriors, you don't really see that often. And also it's like the context of like scenarios is that like most times, like the most dramatic thing happens in order for one of Subaru's enemies to get defeated, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, it's not like a actual all-out battle or anything like that. It's just like, and then, they get punted to the moon by the strongest person ever, or something like that.
Exactly.
Because at the end of the day, Subaru is not a warrior, like Greek tragedy warrior hero. Subaru is not a warrior, and that And as he meets more warrior characters, especially in this very martial land, you kind of see how that it's almost like his worldview is changing because he's now surrounded by a martial world.
To a point.
To a point, exactly. But as we're getting through this, Subaru starts missing Otto after he sees Kuno and Holly bicker. He's like, oh, this reminds me of the good times. And then he breaks his rule with Rem about not talking about their stuff because she doesn't trust him yet, and just says, you have an older sister, your older twin, who holds you dear from the bottom of her heart. So no matter where you are, you'll never be alone. After Rem feels jealous about Holly and Kunin's connection. And God, does Subaru have a way with words at the exact right time, sometimes?
If there's one thing to trust about Barasu, it's his timing.
It's his timing, exactly. Ram is here, even when Ram is not here. Subaru then tells Rem, like, maybe you'll be able to feel Ram if you use your twin's sympathesia. To which Rem disappointedly cannot do it. And Louis comforts her very sweetly.
I don't know if that's actually ever been established that Rem can consciously do it. We know that Rom can, but the only times when Rem did it was when Rom got grievously hurt, and she would sense it from far away.
I don't get how it works, honestly.
I think that's inconclusive. I don't know if we can really determine either way, if I'm being honest, because I think it's safe to you could infer it either way, honestly. And so now we finally arrive in Guarol, the weirdest named city ever. It's been a 4-day journey. Subaru is at this point severely suffering from some lack of Beatrice and Amelia vitamins.
But he's not dead, so that's nice.
He's not died of mana poisoning yet. Yep,
yeah, exactly. Not yet. At this point, he's like, fuck, I'd even hear Roswell's voice and be happy. And that's when you know it's bad.
I don't believe him. I think that would just make him more unnerved and frustrated.
Yeah. I think he's just a silly little boy. We get Kuno and Holly. We've had this nice mini little journey with them, and they say, goodbye, we can't come in there, because if they see us, they're going to know we're Shudrak, and they are going to kill us on the spot. They give Subaru the witch beast horn that he cut off from the snake from the Lifeblood ritual.
It's valuable, you know. You can give
it's
it.
Apparently extremely valuable for its size as well. And basically, we get a very strong inference from Kuna here, telling Subaru, if he does something stupid, they will see an attack. Subaru does not realize they're being serious when they're saying this.
That is true. I mean, he does later, but
he comes to this realization later, but at this point he's like, oh yeah, whatever you guys say, and they set off towards the city.
City covered in giant walls.
Yes.
That are
fortress city.
Giants, I think. Right? Is that what they said that they built the walls for?
No. So what they mention is Subaru's like, yo, could like giants step over these walls or something?
That was it, yes.
And
Attack on Titan moment.
Yeah, Kuna and Holly mention that giants are extremely rare and extinct, also close to extinct.
Right,
and,
they are. Yeah.
And Subaru's like, wow, Rom is a rare specimen. I wonder what he was like back in the day.
Yeah, very funny that he mentions it here in this place. I mean, they know.
That's actually some pretty good foreshadowing then.
Yeah,
I'll just leave that at that.
Yeah, that's what I thought. So we're now at, we're close to the city gates, and Subaru's starting to get a bit worried because he doesn't really have any Valachian identification, right, or anything that could identify him, or he could even really use to bribe the guards without to get in without him costing basically his entire monetary stuff to fund this journey. So yeah, they met. Kuna and Holly mentioned they can't come in. Subaru now thinks, oh my god, it's been 10 days since I've been teleported to Wallachia. It's been a bit of time now. Subaru now realizes, I'm alone in unfamiliar territory. Like, before here, I've managed to find allies and really they help me figure out what's going on. I'm alone. What do I do? And he's like, oh, that bastard Abel. The heavier inspections are probably because of him, aren't they? And then we get a nice little fate reference. Subaru's like, Abel's the type of king to not be able to understand human feelings.
Oh, is that what that's referencing?
Yeah. Rem... and then Rem is like, you are showing your anxiety, like, outside really badly. Are we going to be able to do this? And then Subaru's like, of course we're going to be able to do this. You haven't seen my 108th special skill, relying on other people. So, in terms of relying on other people, we meet possibly one of my favourite pair in the story so far. Unexpectedly, Flop and Medium. A traveling merchant and his warrior sister, who have helped Subaru and Rem get into the city. They believe Subaru and Rem are husband and wife, and that Louis is Rem's niece. They believe that, by the way, because Rem had to make that excuse for them to understand what relationship was going through.
Because Subaru panicked at their story being too similar to Flop and Medium's, right?
Too similar to Flop and Medium, so they don't believe it. And then he uses the next story, which is a Lord of the Rings reference, that they're traveling from their hometown to throw away a cursed ring into a mountain. And when they don't
remember that.
When they don't believe this second amazing excuse, mind you, Rem has to use her quick intuition to fix Subaru's mistake. So now they're husband and wife, kinda.
Well, at least around Flop and Medium, because that is the only name that Flop will ever address Subaru by.
And it is fucking amazing. Subaru then explains to Rem like why he froze up, and he's like, I'm kind of traumatized by what happened in the camp with Jamal and Todd. And Rem is very understanding, and it's like, yeah, I would understand someone to freeze up in that sort of way after being through a situation like that. And Subaru's like, you're being nice to me? And Rem is like, yeah, you're being nice to me? And that goes on until Rem gets pissed off with him again, because Subaru's a fucking idiot.
Yep, he can't let her get close. He can't risk those emotions getting deep again.
Yep.
Has to keep that little bit of a distance that she put up the first time. Also, if you don't remember from reading this yourselves, or you didn't know, this is the first one of those kind of in media res, then reversal moments, where we jump from them outside the walls to inside with Flop and Medium, and then we go back to hear how they introduced themselves and got in.
I told it the way I told it just to make it flow a bit better, but that is how the story
100%, yeah.
So Subaru,
That one's fine. That one's fine.
and it's all fine, and we get shipped off to a tavern with our new friends. This is going to be great. Subaru is excited to relax.
Yeah. Anyways, so they're like, hey, you can stop by here, unpack, Rem, and unpack.
Stay in the hotel room.
Yeah, Louis, you can stay here. I have to learn to trust you. You'll stay on your lonesome. And yeah, Flop kind of confides into, like, they're talking about, like, their ideologies, right?
Yeah.
And Flop and Medium, obviously, as you said before, like a warrior and like a merchant, they as siblings cover each other's weaknesses. And Subaru is like interested to hear that there are people in the Empire that actually has a sort of common ideology with him, right?
And he kind of immediately then thinks, like, it's not a common thing that the way Flop and Medium like regard the world. It clearly isn't.
It's interesting and unique.
So it's very Subaru has met some of the perfect people for him to get along with. He doesn't have an ideological confrontation with these people. The way kind of Flop proposes his ideals, though, is in a very Valachian way. You know, the art of war is not the only way you can be strong for Wallachia.
He's actively antagonistic against the cruelty of the world itself.
Yeah, he literally says, my reasoning as to why I'm nice to people is because it's my revenge against the world.
Yeah, 100%. We'll get to that in a second.
Yes.
Basically he's talking about the fact that, the capital, is very rowdy recently. But Vincent is such a great ruler, so surely he has everything under control, right?
Yeah.
And then good. Yeah, Subaru's talking to him, and suddenly, like, there's just this really weird sensation kind of strikes him.
Yeah, super strong impact to the back the first time, I think.
Neck.
Well, it's interesting because he doesn't even really register at first as well. He's like, what happened? Like, is this like a glitch? Like, he can tell that he returned by death, but he's like, there was really no real indication besides like a, slight pain, right?
It takes him a moment to think and realize that he did, because at first doesn't he believe just that Flop starts repeating himself?
Yeah, exactly.
So to put it in perspective, it's about like not even maybe 2 minutes before Subaru has like its point of death to where he's returned.
It is his shortest respawn timer yet.
It is the shortest respawn timer yet, and Subaru is, as we get into this next chapter. Just aside, this is perhaps one of my favorite chapters in the story up until this point. I don't know if this is a popular opinion or not. I really enjoyed this chapter, and I'm excited to talk about it.
I will tell you that any chapters that feature this character prominently are favorites for Arc 7.
Yeah. So, Subaru's confused. There's no apparent reason for him to return by death, and then he even starts to question the mechanics of return by death until he stops himself, like he mentally forcefully stops himself and is like, return by death has never changed its conditions up until this point in my journey. So clearly I have died. I need to figure out what's going on. He then chides himself for not being more aware of his surroundings at all times, but then he like actually gives himself a break and is like, that's an impossible task for a human being to do. I would be exhausted all the time. I would not be able to do this properly. He then compares this death to the quick one that happened the first time Shawla killed him at the Watchtower, and the kind of like similar feeling that has for him, and the chaos that's thrown him into. So initially, because of the way Subaru was walking ahead of Flop when he died, Subaru suspects Flop may be the culprit.
It's a logical conclusion. You were going to say something, Paul?
Yeah, there's really nothing that he has to go on initially, right?
Only that came from behind.
Yeah, and the thing is, right, he pretty much trusts Flop, right? Like, just sort of instinctually, right?
Yeah.
It's like there's really no reason for anything. Like, he has like no basis for anything, right? So he's like, he doesn't really understand what's exactly going on. But, the way that Flop is kind of talking to him, there was so many openings beforehand that he doesn't really believe that it was any logic for it to be then, right?
Yeah, I think it's the emotion of like the chaos of what's happening, and Subaru initially having that distrust whenever he has returned by death and doesn't know the culprit.
Oh, this is what I was gonna say. Usually in Return by Death, he knows, like, there's a logic behind why he died, right?
Yeah.
he
You can figure
he
out at least
sees
how it happened.
he sees that something occurred, right? There's never like been a moment where he's like, there's no enemies that could possibly be. The closest to that is like, he got cursed the first time, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fair. But even then, he still realized kind of what had to happen to make that go on.
Yeah, it was like...
I think
there's pieces of the puzzle.
Sirius's first kill for him, where he had to piece together what was happening there.
Yeah, that too, yeah.
But
yeah, he gets to know Flop a little bit more this loop instead of actively finding the problem.
Yeah, so he's... With that little, like, emotional... Like, even though logically he knows there's no reason for this guy to be a suspect, he's scared, and understandably so. So he asks Flop, why are you being so nice to me in a country that's just so cruel to the weak? And Flop just, like, holds his arms up to the sky in anger is the way I envisioned this. And he's like, this is my revenge! Him and Medium grew up in, like, an orphanage, and they were thrown away by their parents, which is really sad. And when him and Flop, like, escaped and decided to take their own journey with their life, he vowed revenge against the world. And their revenge is to help people not be unhappy. He's not even mad at the people that abused him in this orphanage. He just thinks they're unhappy because the world treated them badly. This man is pure gold. I love him. It's super wholesome. And Subaru immediately is like, there's no fucking way this guy could have killed me. And they decide they're going to take a different route to this bar, which is their destination currently for food. Subaru mentions that he doesn't like the feng shui of this alleyway.
That's right. It's the feng shui of the alley messes with him, and so he says, let's go this way instead.
Ironically enough, just as a weird side thing, Kyle's recently told me what feng shui was, because I'd never heard of it before, and it's so funny to me that I've been told about this, like, very recently, and it comes up in a piece of literature that I'm reading.
That is funny.
Oh, now you're gonna get hit with the feng shui TikTok, YouTube Shorts guy who is got like really satisfying content to watch.
The vibes are off here.
The vibes are wrong. This alley's not giving safe.
We're not safe here. So, we're going to take this other way. And Flop readily accepts this, by the way. He's like, yeah, I agree with this. Flop turns away and Subaru's throat is cut.
Yep, just like that.
Yeah, he's dead. He feels himself bleed out, but the person that's cutting his throat, like the way it's described, he cuts deeper to kill him quicker. He then berates himself for not trusting Flop fully. This is like complete proof that Flop is not the person doing this.
Well, his distrust of Flop led him to not focus on where else it could have been coming from.
Exactly. So now he's back again. And now he's a little bit more panicked than he was last time. He is so scared he's worried about Rem. So initially he's like, okay, we need to go back to Rem, Flop. We need to go help her. And then he realizes, shit, what if they're tailing me and I lead them to Rem? So then he's like, Flop, I don't actually need Rem right now. Can we go the other way? And Flop's like, what the fuck? Weird, really funny comedy moments in this extremely tense chapter. So him and Flop leave the alleyway and go onto the main street with lots of people. And Subaru finally starts to feel a bit more safe because he's got the safety of the crowd, right?
Remind me, is this the loop where he starts suspecting the same one that murdered him first in this arc? The hunter in the forest that shot him to death?
I believe that's the next loop. Or it could be this loop, but he discusses it more in that next loop. So they're leaving onto the main street, and Subaru is finally starting to feel a bit safer. And then he hears screaming in the crowd from behind him. Him and Flop, like, turn around, and there's a wheel rushing at max speed on this road towards Subaru. Flop reaches out his hand to try and help Subaru, but it's too late. The wheel smashes into Subaru, and he is crushed. His head is ringing, he has really bad tinnitus, he has no teeth, and he just dies of his wounds.
6 deaths this arc already, if y'all are keeping track at home.
Yeah,
3 within the last 8 minutes.
Yes.
Very painful.
Subaru now collapses from fear. He is terrified of whoever is killing him.
Yeah, because
is not gaining any information from these loops. Go on.
Not only is he not gaining any information, but like he's in this moment, there's in so trapped in succession, his body and his soul, even if it's like he respawns and he's like fine, his soul remembers the pain that he just experienced, you know?
Yeah.
he's having a trouble to figure out what's even going on, right?
Yeah, he's having pretty bad phantom pain.
But he kind of snaps himself out of it by thinking, like, if he died, then what about Flop, right? And the impetus of, like, thinking about saving somebody else motivates him to kind of keep on going, you know?
Yeah, it's like his hero powers kicking in.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, because once he considers the other person's life, he kind of recognizes the fact that he is dying each time here.
Yeah.
And that he needs to avoid that, not just try and find out the cause or like rule something out or stop that one specific death. It re-perspectives the humanity of him and the people around him again.
Yeah, it's because at first it's a fight or flight, right? It's survival. He's scared. He doesn't know what to do. Now he's considering the stuff around him. And, after Flop attempted to grab him when this carriage crushes him to death, which Subaru now realizes it was a carriage that did this in the main street, he then realizes Flop was caught up in that damage. He didn't see that, but that happened. Subaru regards Flop in this completely new light and, like, orders his level of protection, like, up the top. Like, he has to save Flop. So, he grabs him and runs as quickly as possible to the bar that's their destination to hire the strongest person there to protect them.
Right, he hires the merc here.
Yes.
Rowan.
Yes.
Yeah.
So they stroll up to this bar, and the barkeeper's like, "Hey, son, what can I do for you?" And Super's like, "Where's the strongest here?" "Oh, it's this guy, Rowan." He also mentions Flop is a big softie. And him and his sister help everyone, and because of that, a lot of people are indebted to him. And Subaru's like, I'm gonna pay you back, I promise. Rowan is a drunkard man in his 50s with, weirdly enough, a katana at his waist, which is not very common in this world.
Oh, you mean Rowan looks like a Ronin?
Yes.
That's so weird and bizarre. Strange.
Yeah. Subaru is extremely skeptical because the barkeeper, I shit you not, says he's a drunkard, he's the strongest, he's a drunkard. So he immediately hires Rowan. Rowan is immediately, I think, impressed by Subaru's ability to just, like, throw the money at him and just be like, yo, this is all my money, protect me now. Rowan immediately gets serious and then just goes, "Are you being tailed?" and walks in front of Subaru. A man then stumbles into the bar. And he's saying something. Fuga. Flop runs down on the ground to try and help this man, and Subaru immediately recognizes something is wrong and grabs Flop just in time before the man explodes into red mist because he had fire magic stones put in him. He was made into a human bomb.
This is straight out of The Dark Knight, and I love it.
Yeah.
It was such a brilliant, disgusting attack. Who could be so cruel and malicious to do this to a bar full of innocent drunken adventurers?
This is crazy. Yeah. Like,
the customers start fleeing out the door, like, rightfully. I'm like, fuck, I'm getting out of here. But the smoke is, like, not just blinding them physically, but it's doing something to their eyes. They can't see. Subaru is trying to, like, scream out to them, like, no, don't do this, because he can foresee what's about to happen. As another explosion rings out and all the patrons that ran out die.
Oh, and now he's a terrorist, too. I mean, attacking the first attack just to move everyone in one spot just to attack him again.
Yeah.
It's genuinely brilliant, but unbelievably awful what's happening here.
And taking us out of how I'm telling the story, when I first read these chapters, the amount of, like, primal fear I felt from this opponent, like, whoever that was, and I at this point already kind of figured out who it might have been, I was terrified. This is some of the best atmospheric writing Tappei has ever done. The atmosphere that is set in these two chapters that follow these events is phenomenal.
The scenario is so, it's so visceral in its, like, groundedness, like, you're like lacking so much information, but the events that are happening are all varied in, like, just the right amount of unique ways. They're just like, okay, next thing, I don't know what's going to happen next,
Yeah, it's phenomenal storytelling, and I am.
And you feel when you're reading this, like, Subaru being cornered, but you're also yourself are being like, and then, okay, maybe he can go do this, and then it's like, nope.
And
nope.
It's really interesting that you said you had kind of already pieced together who this was, Wolf. And like as soon as we get to this next part where Subaru uncovers who it is too, I do want to jump back out of the narrative context again to talk about that.
And we will do that because I think it's going to be really fun to talk about. So, back to the story. We've gotten to the point where the patrons of the bar are dead. They've been exploded by a second explosion, which was probably some sort of tripwire of some kind with fire magic stones. This person is prepared and does clearly not care about collateral damage. Subaru at this point is so traumatized by the pure brutality he is seeing, he kind of blanks out. Rowan takes action immediately. He says to the barkeep, Flop, and Subaru, we need to get out of here now. They run to the back door. It's been blocked. Smoke is filling up behind them, and they're going to choke to death if something doesn't happen. So Rowan cuts down the blocked door and tells everyone to leave and to get down. Subaru gets a bad feeling, and before he can tell Rowan anything, he falls backwards and collapses, and the top of his head is pulverized and his eyes are hanging out. The barkeep is then stabbed through the smoke of these flames and killed in one strike. And a man with a damp cloth appears around his face. Appears, and he's got a damp cloth on his face, and he's got an axe. He immediately, without hesitation, kills Flop with a chop to the head. His brain matter sprays onto Subaru, like literally. This is the first time in the series where Subaru literally wets himself in fear. At least this is what I believe the first time he's wet himself.
In fear, yes.
In fear,
he did it in the Arc 2 loop where
Yeah.
he lost control of everything, but other than that, yes.
Subaru is screaming at this. He's going insane at this point. He's like, why are you doing this? Who are you? What are you? He doesn't say anything apart from, why would I tell you anything? What if you run away again? And he's immediately killed with the axe blow to the head. Subaru, as he's a breakup point before he respawns, is thinking about how he tricked those soldiers in the Budaheim jungle and believes that he deserves to pay the consequences for weighing their lives on a scale before the ones he loves. Subaru triggers his return by death, and he collapses to the floor after seeing Flop and thinking about his head getting cut in half. He then comes to the realization that the one who is killing him is the soldier from the Budaheim jungle, Todd. And this is where we'll break out the story and discuss a bit more.
Yes, okay, so unlike where we've been discussing like Todd as this like really impactful character that has this presence and is like almost super legendary in the ReZero novel readers community, when we were getting these chapters like out like chapter by chapter, week or month by month, I don't think anybody was guessing that it was the random soldier in the jungle that Subaru had befriended the one time and pissed off the other time. Like, the thought of it being Todd had never crossed my mind.
Really?
Yes. Not even once. I was on board with Subaru thinking it was the same hunter from the jungle.
Oh.
It was someone else, like
okay.
either an assassin that could sense he was connected to the witches cult somehow, an agent of another party that thought he was Vincent, or thought he was Abel somehow. The fact that it was just Todd hunting Subaru down had never crossed my mind. It was a genuine shock.
It must have been an amazing reveal then for you.
Oh, absolutely. And I'm super glad I didn't read the light novels for that, because just like with Abel and his really bad mask,
yeah.
Otsuka straight spoils who this is.
Yeah, you can
with the
see
art.
his illustration. Yeah,
You can see his armor, his axe, and
It's literally in like the colored pages at the beginning of the light novels.
Yeah.
So there's no question on who's doing this at all.
It's such a, how do I put it? It's such an almost like an iconic moment. I understand why it was illustrated, but it does kind of ruin for the light novel only readers that moment a bit. The reason I like reading up this, I thought this was Todd, was because he left such an impression on me on the last part of the story where I thought he had to come up again, and I didn't think it was going to be long again until he came back. And this sort of like methodical hunting that was happening to Subaru, I kind of got that vibe from Todd when we first met him. So that's kind of where I deducted it from like feeling of where the story was going, rather than it being like a in-story moment of getting clues, if that makes sense.
think I may have assumed he was dead because the Shudrakians had destroyed the camp and killed everyone there.
I did not assume he was dead just because of the way his character was emphasized. I thought for certain there was no way Tappei was going to invest in a character like this without bringing him back.
Well, for me, I didn't necessarily think it was Todd, though I gotta admit that I'm glad it is because, I think there's a lot of strong characters in the series, a lot of menacing characters in the series, but the way in which, it could be anybody, right? You could write anybody to be this menacing, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the fact that it's Todd actually makes it even better because, even if he had the same writing behind it, the truth is that the fact that it's just somebody who, by all measures,
is just a guy.
It's just a guy, right? By all measures, seems like just a guy, right? and the fact is, we'll get to it in a second. The fact is that he is above all else human. He doesn't have any magical powers or everything like that. All the strength that he's using is all just from being so precise in his hunt that he's able to kill with such efficiency, right?
Yeah.
Well, yes. So you mentioned this before about Abel being a more pragmatic version of Subaru. Todd takes that to the extreme of there's literal no hesitation. Oh, he's not in range of my axe attack in the alley anymore. I'm going to push this cart down the road and cut off a wheel so it runs him over.
And not care about
he ran into that crowded building. I'll blow it up from the outside. Oh, there's a back door. I'll blow that one up too.
Yeah, I'll trap him inside. Yeah,
I'll smoke him out and use it as disguise and just hit anyone who comes through.
Yeah, I love these are some of my favorite chapters in this series so far, specifically because whereas Abel was an amazing ideological foil to Subaru, Todd is an amazing physical and personal foil to Subaru.
Well, we'll get to ideological because I think there's a part of that in there as well.
Yeah, that is true. But I wanted to focus a bit more on this personal primal sort of foil to Subaru because it at this point the reader and Subaru are feeling there's no way out. He's trapped. He's been cornered. Todd is prepared for this. He's ready. He's going to be hunted down relentlessly. And Subaru is the most afraid he's ever been in the series.
There's been almost, even in the Synarch Bishops, which is an interesting contrast we talked about this earlier.
Yes.
There's not been this level of vindictiveness and brutality that any of them displayed. You get to Beetlejuice, who kind of just taunts him a bit, right? But he
monologues like a Bond villain.
He monologues about this or that, but then he's I pity you. I want you to find the truth, right?
Yeah. And
everyone else is just too self-absorbed in their own stuff to really, feel like they're really challenging him, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think.
And yes, go ahead.
Oh no, you go ahead. Actually,
I was gonna say that the level at which that this as an enemy is unstoppable in the sense that if you're a normal person in the scenario, right? Not like Subaru has a million times to redo this over. You're you couldn't stop Todd no matter what, right? As soon as you got one opening, it's over, right?
Well, you wouldn't even know that Todd was coming after
exactly.
you. Subaru only knows because he's coming back from the dead every time. Todd killed Subaru before he even got the chance to react.
Yeah.
And this brings to light one of the other parts I love about Todd as the antagonist is he exemplifies what it must be like for everyone that Subaru has fought against and realizing that he's cut them off at every possible turn. That Subaru knows every route that the enemies are going to try and do. Oh, I already took care of all your fingers. I led you to this one cliff where I have a spirit knight waiting to chop you down, and I have a plan for when you possess me, and another spirit for if you survive through that. And Todd is just that against Subaru, and it terrifies us.
Thank you for mentioning that in particular.
Yeah, last loop Subaru is very scary to imagine last loop Subaru if you're the enemy,
And this, I'm actually gonna continue the flow of the story here because I want to continue our analysis once we get a couple more revelations, if that's all right.
Yeah, absolutely. Keep going.
Okay. So, Subaru has just returned by death, and he's now assuming that Todd is the perpetrator. And the reason he's getting that is because of the feeling he got in the jungle and the sort of feeling that Todd emanated to him. Because he realizes that smoke that hit the bar patrons had an irritant in it with spices. He used the the medieval equivalent of tear gas to drive these people out. He used fire magic stones to cause explosions. This man means serious business. And Subaru then comes to a realization, I'm a fucking idiot. The nearest Imperial city is here. If any survivors from the jungle would go anywhere, it would be here. Subaru has walked into a viper's nest of enemies, like completely unaware. So at this point, Subaru asks Flop to go back to the inn with some excuse, because he wants Flop to remain safe. He's prioritizing Flop's safety. He's like, I can deal with this problem. I just need Flop to get to safety. As Subaru's walking away to go and get Rowan's help again, he hears Flop scream. He turns around, and Flop has fallen onto the floor, and he has a knife in his leg. Subaru realizes this is a trap as soon as he bends down to help him, and holds his hands up defensively instinctively, as he feels one of his hands get cut off and the rest of his fingers on his other hand get crushed. Todd is not hiding his face this time, and he shows himself. He casually, without any hesitation, goes to kill Subaru, not even asking questions like a lot of Subaru's opponents in the past have. Subaru is terrified. But Flop jumps up from the floor and onto Todd. And in that split moment, you think, even if Flop dies right now, maybe Subaru can escape and figure out more information. He's immediately thrown to the floor, and his head is split in two again. Subaru is understandably traumatized, terrified, and doesn't understand. He's like, I understand why you resent me, but why would you do these things to all these other people around me? And then Todd says perhaps one of the most chilling things in the series, like, ever spoken. He isn't trying to kill Subaru because he resents him. He sees Subaru as a threat, like a poisonous snake that he needs to kill. Todd is afraid of Subaru.
He sure is.
And he's going to these lengths because he is terrified of what Subaru is capable of.
You know, it's very interesting because, you know, as he says, you know, like, why would you go through all this trouble to kill something that you hate, right?
Yeah.
Like, you would torture it, you would do whatever, right? But it's not, you want to get something away, rid yourself of something, not if you resent it, but if you fear it, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And what he's saying is that, you know, he'll use whatever is in his disposal to kill it, to make his own fear go away, right? And he's like, you know, you are the same as me, and I will not give you time, right?
Yes.
Like, authorities, Subaru's thinking, like, authorities had openings. But Todd, you know, like, in this scenario, is doing whatever he can and using anything in his surroundings to take him out, right?
And
like the truth is that this is it's interesting because, like, fear is an interesting thing to talk about here, right?
Yes.
Because what is it that Todd has to fear about Subaru, right?
And I think...
Well, we can peek back and look at the current loop of Subaru through Todd's perspective, if we want to get the concept. So he pulls this guy and his two companions out of the river, and the first thing Subaru does is immediately start trying to manipulate Todd, and he notices that.
Yeah.
Subaru escapes that situation, brings upon a witch beast, manages to escape to the very enemy that they were looking for, and send them back at their camp and kill everyone else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then he comes to the city you've escaped to, that you've run away to.
Yeah.
So from Todd's perspective, he is the one being pursued here, right?
Probably.
And we're going to talk more about how Todd views Subaru at the end of the story discussion of this phase. But the main thing to note here is, as he says, and as Gold mentioned, He says, "You are the same as me. I will not give you the time." Todd is saying he is afraid of Subaru because he thinks he is just as capable of what Todd is
cunning.
capable of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Todd sees in Subaru himself as well.
Exactly.
And it's interesting because it's just like Subaru, right? It's like there's a part of yourself that you fear, right? And this is Todd's demon that he's fighting as well, almost.
This is not, how do I put this? This would be like, essentially, this is what Roswell would have wanted Subaru to be perfected into, I think. In the sense of Subaru doing anything, the perfect level of cunning, but for that one person. Now, we don't know Todd's other motivations here yet, apart from his fear. But I want to...
But what we do know about him,
like this way of, like, we've got the foil of Abel, this major ideological foil who's black and white kind of an ally. We don't really know. Todd is this antagonistic force of what Subaru feels is nature almost at this point. It's evil. He says evil multiple times throughout this chapter. This chapter is even called, the chapter before is even called Looming Evil, right? Subaru has this feeling of like primeval evil. And then Todd says, "You're the same as me. I will not give you time." Imagine
also the first... Yeah, keep going.
Sorry. Imagine a character like Todd having returned by death. Because Subaru, the reason Subaru is appearing this cunning to people and as a threat to Todd is because of return by death. Not because of just some innate cunning Subaru has. Because Subaru does have cunning, don't get me wrong. But this is terrifying, genuinely. I have not been more scared of a character in the series yet. And it's as Subaru is about to get killed by Todd here, he thinks about the archbishops, as Gold was mentioning, with the archbishops and authorities and such, and how he realizes that were easy to defeat with return by death. This enemy seems like the perfect counter to return by death.
Yeah, because he doesn't do the same thing in the exact same way.
He responds in every way Subaru reacts.
Yeah, it's adaptable, but also he doesn't give any information away about like what he's doing.
And there's nothing to gain, because as soon as Subaru changes the way that he acts, Todd is going to change in turn. So there's no information to gather other than the fact that it's Todd.
And it's not even just change, it's also speed up his timeline, right? Because as you notice throughout all of these loops, whenever Subaru acts out immediately, Todd will act. Anything else to mention, lads, before I continue with the story? Because this is amazing discussion.
Yes, I think at this point, Subaru is also realizing that Todd is just like a losing Rem a long time ago was. Todd is a consequence of return by death not bringing him back far enough, and that has led to him being his first proper enemy, like someone that is directly opposed to Subaru specifically.
Yeah.
Yes.
And it's one of those things that he realizes, right? He's like, this is the first time he's ever actually had somebody that's like, it feels like a video. It's not even like a video game or a manga that he could like. He feels like he has something to latch onto where he's like, no, this is like an enemy that I've created with my own actions. Like for the very first time, right? The world kind of has just responded around him. Like the world was lived in, the world was whatever. But this is the first time he's actually had somebody that he feels like, no, this person just hates me, right? Like this is my own personal like battle to overcome.
Yeah. And it's terrifying. And the way I have to give my hat off to Tappei here, like the prose, the pacing, the atmosphere, some of the best in the series yet. Phenomenal writing, and I'm excited to talk more about Todd.
I like to think that once he got to this part of Arc 7 and was writing Todd and getting that dynamic, that's why he decided to stay in Wallachia for so long.
I very much feel that was definitely a deciding factor. Because
this could definitely feel like a point where Subaru leaves for the next city and could have gone to find help and regrouped with everyone else going from there.
Yeah.
Having had a short stint down here in Wallachia.
And kind of extended the world a bit.
I think as a writer, when you hit a moment like this, it feels like whatever you were like gardening before, like whatever seeds you were planting before are now sprouting into something that you weren't even expecting. You're like, but actually this is really good. Like you're like writing and you're like, oh no, this has to be, I have to see this out. Like I think he's starting to see everything converge, and he's like, no, there's a lot going on here that I think I want to write more about. Right?
Yeah, I think he could very much feel almost like what the lightning in the bottle effect here, because I can tell, even with the way this is written, Tappei loved writing this.
There is so much love and effort put in whenever Todd is on screen.
Yeah.
I'll leave it at that going forward. Just as Subaru is laying on the ground, dying again to Todd once more.
And Subaru's come all to these realizations, and then he says, wait, and he says, I will not wait. Subaru feels like he has no options. Todd has prepared for this, and he is cornered. Every single time he goes to the main street, a different alleyway, he runs. He even tries to get Flop out prematurely. None of these options are working. He can't go in any direction. Subaru's terrified. And then he comes to a realization. This tiny piece of information Todd has given him. He figures it out. And he uses some of this cunning that is now evolving into something that Todd is afraid of, because he knows his best option is to use Todd's fear as a weapon. So he screams out his name while he's in the middle of this crowd after he's respawned to scare him and to stop him from taking action as long as possible. He threatens Todd. He literally cusses him out as a weakling, and he flips him off.
Yeah, he does the thing that every kid who's walked into their house and gotten that like little inkling of unnerved, like, I know you're there, come out now and I won't hurt you. Except he's right, Todd is there. He's already watching.
It's like his own personal boogeyman, eh?
Yeah, you're screaming at the shadow in your closet, you know. You're like, oh, there's a monster under my bed, right? And you're just screaming at it, but the monster's actually under your bed this time, you know?
Yeah.
But you're right. It's like, because of the one information that Todd gave them was really helpful, which is the fact that Todd is doing this rationally because there's an express, like emotion born of fear is a rational one. It's not insane, right?
Yeah.
So when Subaru calls out his name, Todd has every reason to be scared of the situation. He's lost initiative.
Yeah, because it's going to seem like he's walking into a trap.
Again,
yeah, exactly.
Again, if I'm Todd here, and because as we talk about like walking into a trap and how he perceives how Subaru acts, as we'll get onto the end of this part of the end of the phase, think of this from Todd's perspective, right? This terrifying enemy that seemingly knows every action you're taking, and he shouts out your name when you're prepared to ambush him and put him down quickly, and says, I'm gonna fucking destroy you and kill you. If I was Todd, I would be terrified.
Rightfully so.
Yeah. I love the dynamic of these two already. Subaru is now like, holy shit, I think maybe this time, this like delayed time might work. I need to leave here as quickly as possible, everyone. He grabs Flop and starts sprinting. And he's like, and Flop's like, huh? What? Okay.
Husband Kun, please. What's going on?
Subaru, while he's running, is like, I've died 5 times in this city. I've died 5 times. Yeah, that's just to put that in perspective.
And he died in the capital. Or Priscilla.
Yeah. Isn't that fucking crazy? We're back to the tavern, and we need to get the fuck out of Dodge. And conveniently, Rem is already not even unpacked. She's ready to go. Seems like she may have been planning to run away with Louis.
Okay, so I know that this is like an actual plot point, but I couldn't see it that way. I am not unpacked within the first hour of settling into it.
Yeah, that's true. But you're right, it is a plot point.
Yeah, but this is a plot point. I don't see personally. I actually thought the exact same thing when I was reading this. I was like, wait, they've not been here for too long.
Yeah, it could have. You could really like, oh, that's Subaru's paranoia, right?
Yeah.
At the moment, yeah.
I thought that's exactly what it was. Is that Rem is still injured. She just got out of a long journey. She has a small child to take care of. Of course, she has not unpacked the very same pack she's going to have to pack back up the next morning. Yeah. It wouldn't make any sense to do. But, I mean, just as a point, I thought that was...
Yeah.
It is what it is.
So, as we continue, we need to get the fuck out of Dodge. Subaru's like, yo, you know this ox cart you guys have? How fast can it go? Can we get out of here, please? And Flop and Medium just go along with this. They are the chattiest chads. Like, they just go along with this. They're great.
You see why I put medium and flop so high up in our tier list episode that never came out?
I have read barely any chapters of them, Connor, and I can tell you already they're going to be some of my favorite characters in the series. I can just tell. Along with Todd, mind you, my favorite antagonist yet. This is... I'm spoiled for choice of favorite characters in this arc so far. We got to rush to get out of here on these fallow carts, which are like these just oxen in this world that Valakia seems to use a lot of. But anyway, they're running out.
They don't have the ground dragons down here.
And these guys don't have the divine protection of wind, so they can't run very fast. So they rush to the gate to get out of here, and Subaru's like, fuck, we've run out of time. Todd's realised because the Imperial soldiers are by the gate and waiting for them. And who, if anyone else, would be there but our good eye patch buddy friend, Jamal.
Jamal! He's back.
He's back, baby, and he's glorious as ever. Oh my god, I love this character too.
Isn't this when Rem socks him in the face again, though?
Yes,
Okay.
So, yeah, this is one of the funniest turns of events for such a tense moment. So, Medium pulls out her dual machetes after she sees this threat, and she's like, brother, don't worry, I've got this. She jumps into the crowd of Imperial soldiers, and she just, like, flashes around with these machetes, and all of the Imperial soldiers fall over. And Subaru's like, he's on the cart as they're riding past, and Medium's jumped in front of him, and he's just like, oh my god, she's strong! And Rem's just like, that's not a good compliment for a lady, and I was like, that's a good fucking callback to Arc 2. So then Medium meets Jamal in battle, and Jamal's also a dual wielder. He's got 2 dual swords. We're like, oh shit, what's gonna happen? Medium's gonna bust through him because she's really strong, right? No! Jamal fucking defends from Medium's attack like it's nothing and starts pushing her back. And then,
this is what I mean about the scaling of this arc. It's very interesting.
Yeah, it's crazy. Then, I shit you not, audience at home, if for some reason you are watching this and you haven't read up until this point, Flop tells his sister, I believe in you, you can do it.
Right, she gets the Shonen power up.
Yeah, she gets the power of friendship, or the power of siblinghood.
Oh my god.
And she forces back Jamal with this power of love. And it's so beautiful. And then Rem, she picks up one of the boxes of spice from the cart and throws it at Jamal and says, take this eye patch man. And he cuts it open, and the spice goes into his one good eye, and he goes blind. and then to top it all off, she socks him in the face.
That's right. Yes.
And he falls
don't
to the
forget,
ground.
she's done this before.
Yeah.
It wasn't on screen, but when they first got brought out of the river by Todd and Jamal, Rem beat up Jamal.
She does it again.
Yeah, it's the second time. He's like, this is happening again, right? Yeah, second time's happened.
This was for such terrifying 2 chapters. I was not expecting to laugh my arse off as much as I did when I saw this turn of events.
Can I just say, this Rem is better than the old Rem.
I love this Rem so much. Provincial Rem is best.
This is the Rem that's always been there. It's just everyone is so focused on her borderline obsession of Subaru in later Arc 2. But she's like this in the beginning of Arc 2.
She is, yes. I would say she has a bit more of an emotional lens because of her trauma in Arc 2. Of course. But this is like Rem at peak Remhood. This is fucking glorious shit. I love this. So Jamal's knocked to the floor, and I don't know if this is described, but the way I imagined it was he just like fell into a load of boxes on the street and just fucking slumped down. She throws a rope out as they're leaving, and Medium just grabs onto it and swings on and is like, yeah, I'm on the cart, woo! So we're all good. We fucking push through this gate, and the guards are like, whoa, what the fuck? So we get through the gate. We think we're scot-free, and then Subaru's like, I know what's about to happen next. Todd jumps down from the gate and flies onto the cart, and he's like screaming from above, and he goes to cut Subaru's head off, and Subaru's like, I predicted this too. And an arrow flies from the distance from Holly with the help of Kuna, and Todd flies off the cart.
But not just flies off. If I remember right, he gets hit and like does a quadruple barrel roll through the air and gets flung back into the wall.
Not to mention, before Todd can even like gets hit by this, Louis jumps onto Todd and saves Subaru. Before this can even save Subaru. So
shout out to Louis.
Yeah, shout out to Louis for saving his life. Again, mind you.
She's been nothing but helpful to Subaru this entire arc.
Yeah, it's kind of... This is a wild turn. And that is the end of that series of mini arcs in Guerrero.
Well, with the ending of Subaru cursing out Abel's name. Like,
yes.
I should never have trusted that fucking asshole.
I should never have trusted that fucking asshole. Okay, I like just to discuss a bit before we continue the flow of the story that we're telling here.
Yes, absolutely. I
love this. I love this so much. I have not had so much fun with ReZero in a long time. I loved this so much. I cannot explain to you how much I was terrified and how much I laughed. This was peak ReZero for me, personally.
Yeah, this is definitely one of the highlights of, like this type of, return by death sort of scenario, which is just like, there's an enemy that you have to fight, right? It gives it, there's a lot of texture to it, I would say. Like that, Teppei's really good at writing very tense moments sometimes, right? Mm-hmm. But like sometimes you get lost in the, like, oh, this character has to have a huge moment. But when it's like a very like, everything's so new here that everything becomes like, so like mystical and interesting.
You're playing catch up the entire time as well because it's also so new.
You're learning like new things about the scenario and like these new characters they're introducing this entire time. But like, in this part, it's less about like shoving names at you. It's more just like, okay, these characters are along for the ride and you're getting to see their personality through, like what's going on, I think that's a lot of fun because it's like there's a driving force between like, you want Super to get out of this. And then you're learning about flop and medium and you're kind of just seeing how they're going to get out of it,
But also this kind of cruel feeling of wanting more of this, right? Like, I want to see Subaru more in these situations. Not because I want to see Subaru suffer, but because it's really tense, right? Like, I've never felt this much tension in the story before.
No, it's a point where they, instead of using Return by Death as the narrative mechanism for Subaru to grow as a character, similar to Arc 1, this is the first time where we really get Return by Death as a point of it's happening to him and he's forced to rely on it instead of choosing to rely on it.
Yeah.
And has to make do with what he can do there.
Because actually you're right, like Return by Death a lot of times is used as a mystery device, right? Like slowly piecing together a mystery. And here the mystery doesn't really matter, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's more just like, how do we outwit this one person that we know is coming after us? And it comes, and the conclusion is actually very like simple, right? It's just like, this person is scared of me, otherwise he wouldn't be doing this. So I'm just going to make him more scared so that I actually have a chance out of it, right?
Yep, he just needs a single opening, and as soon as he has it, he takes it and gets out.
There's no deep lore, there's no convincing, there's no whatever.
There's no negotiation.
There's no negotiation, there's no internal bargaining. I mean, there is. There's like realizing that I just have to, make this guy scared of me, right?
Yeah.
And that's, I think, interesting because very rarely does Return by Death get used as just like, as I said before, just like a mechanic to get you away from a situation, right?
We've really only had it that way. Maybe, I guess you can kind of consider it with Sirius in Arc 5, but honestly, he was choosing to jump back into the fray in those occasions.
Yeah, there was he could have turned out and run.
Yeah, it's useless, right? Like, it's literally just him reliving the same deaths and lives over and over and over again until he kind of smacks himself awake and be like, okay, I just need to do this, right?
Yes. Yeah. The only time similar to this that we really, really got was early on in Arc 6 when they're trying to get to the tower. But that was still like he had different choices and decisions to make on the approach.
This he has to endure it. That's all it is. It's like he has to endure a bunch of deaths, a bunch of pain, and kind of work internally to figure out how to, best the situation.
Yeah.
This is kind of our first taste of what Tappei meant by, I'm done taking it easy on Subaru
Yeah.
when he was getting to Arc 7.
You mentioned that in the previous episode. I didn't really like fully comprehend what you meant at that point, but now I've gotten a taste of what that is. I understand what you mean fully. The training wheels are off for Subaru, folks. He has a lot more to deal with in terms of stress and problems, and it doesn't seem like he's going to be getting much rest this arc. Let's just say that.
No, and also every single time he does successfully get out of a loop thus far, it has left him with a consequence that he has to deal with rather than solving the problems. With the first one with Rem, as soon as the checkpoint updates, now she's permanently pissed at him. The second set of loops, now Todd is an actual enemy. And this time he just caused like an attack in the middle of the city. Like they have caused even further antagonism with the city guards, and he's lost that point of safety.
Yeah. It's almost reversing how Return by Death has been used in the previous parts of the story, whereas before it was almost like Subaru's superpower. Like it was his way to, on his terms, to change fate, to change the world, make it.
Now he's just confronting consequences. It's just like, you must confront this, is what it's saying.
Yeah, Return by Death is no longer his superpower. It's now fully his curse.
It's an autosave, not a checkpoint.
Yeah, this is not... Subaru doesn't have... Subaru never had control in the first place, but Subaru's illusion of control is shattered here. And that is fucking amazing writing.
But you know who apparently did have control this entire time? That fucking asshole. Emperor Vincent Vallacchia.
Keikaku Dori, right?
So,
all according to Keikaku.
So we cut back into the story, and it has been 3 days since they've left this city. On this carriage, and they're going back towards the Shudrak village. And
that's 13 days in Wallachia, for those keeping count.
Yes. I'm assuming these days being kept count is for a minor explosive reason. So we start at the start of the chapter, and we switch to Todd's perspective. Todd has survived, and he's like, I fucked up, I didn't kill this guy. And you can feel the genuine fear Todd feels for Subaru as you read through his perspective here. It's like, this is genuine. That's his reason for doing this. He then, Jamal comes up to help him. And Jamal was seemingly very wholesome. He's actually really worried about his brother-in-law, but he doesn't really show it. He's a bit of a tsundere.
Future brother-in-law. They're not married yet.
Yeah, but you kind of get that feeling from them.
And that's another kind of sibling duo that we have in this phase as
exactly.
well. It's between Todd and Jamal.
It's brother-in-law, yeah.
Yeah. He then says to Jamal, who's like, yo, we got to chase after these bastards. And then Todd's like, wait. No, it's a trap. They did this to make sure we would go into the jungle.
If we follow them now, we'll just be playing right into their hands. This devious monster.
Subaru in Todd's mind is literally the fiction trope of what's he called? Like an evil, a bad motherfucker. Not like a...
Do you mean Subaru in Todd's mind?
Yeah, a Subaru in Todd's mind. I always forget
like a Machiavellian villain?
Yes, the Machiavellian villain. The one that's always a step ahead, that knows everything and he's planning everything. In his mind, Subaru did all of this on purpose and was completely fine to make sure Todd would follow him into the jungle and fucking die. Todd thinks this guy is after him.
Yeah, he's the last survivor of his attack on the camp in the jungle. Yeah. Obviously, he and Jamal have to go.
Yeah, he needs to finish him off, yeah.
Yeah. So with that amazing tidbit aside, it's been 3 days on this carriage.
Excuse me. You skipped over the fact, and I remember this vividly, that Todd randomly offers Jamal a piggyback ride through the city.
Yes! Oh my god, I'm so sorry. Yes.
And I don't remember if he says, like, fuck off and die or kill yourself, or it's some rude response.
I think it's along the lines
so
of
out
fuck
of
off
nowhere.
and die. It's so glorious. You don't expect that side from Todd whatsoever, which I think makes what he did before even scarier, because he seems human.
Well, does he? Or is he saying something that's meant to be like, what will lighten the mood here? What would be a normal
and then you get to that feeling, is this like some psychopathy kind of shit? What's going on?
Yeah, there's a lot there that's very interesting, because it's very, to me, it's very, it's interesting to like interrogate in your head, because the way that Todd acts is very much like, in the moment, I feel like he gives his all to every situation, to the point where he will literally just like forget like the proper, like he's so perfecting in the way that he acts in order to like get what he wants that it doesn't even like register him that like he needs to be consistent in the way that he acts, or that he needs to, you know, like he actually cares about this or that. Like to him, it's just like getting the objective at hand, you know?
I genuinely get like some psychopathy sort of vibes. Like obviously I'm not a psychologist and I can't like directly like diagnose a character, for instance, but I do get that sort of feeling from Todd.
Todd feels like a character ripped out of the later chapters of a zombie apocalypse story. Like the one who just decides to make every pragmatic choice immediately.
That is honestly a really good comparison. That is okay, yeah. Fuck, man. Todd is an amazing character.
I read a couple chapters ahead from after this phase, and I can't wait to talk about it, but there's like a scene with Todd that is very like answers this question really well.
Yes. Yeah. I know the exact one you're meaning.
Oh,
I couldn't remember if that was this arc or not, so thank you for clarifying that.
Do we have even more to talk about next phase with that?
Yeah.
Oh, don't worry. Todd is, if it's not obvious by now, a major character in this arc.
I imagine he's going to be one of the major antagonists. I wonder. Okay.
I might go so far as to say the major antagonist, but that's a matter of debate.
Okay. Let's just say I'm very excited to continue this series with you gentlemen, and with the viewers at home. I hope you're enjoying this episode, because I'm loving it so far. Okay. So, we're back on this carriage. It's been 3 days. We're back in the Shudrak village.
Time to hit a motherfucker.
Time to hit a motherfucker. Because Subaru is so mad, and if I'm being honest, he's very justified in how angry he is.
He's not only so mad, he's been this mad for 3 days straight.
And literally, in the text itself, it says, the whole reason I took this journey was to punch a bitch. So, he comes back to this village, and Mazzelda interferes with Subaru's as Subaru grabs Abel and is about to punch him in the face. Mazzelda's like, his face is too handsome. Don't punch him in the face, but I understand your anger.
Anything but the face.
Anything but the face. I understand the anger, though. You can punch him still. She gives him express permission, and Abel takes it. He takes a gut punch from Subaru. And then Subaru just sits down in front of him and glares at him.
You don't think that, I mean, you think Abel didn't calculate that he was going to get hit on Subaru coming back?
Oh, he definitely did. But it's an amazing series of events.
Why do you think he seduced Mazzelda in that time to make sure she would protect his face?
Yeah. So, this time, instead of what happened previous chapters where Subaru and Abel had like a one-on-one conversation, now everyone is here to listen in.
Yeah, Flop's just also in the conversation.
I love Flop, by the way, so much. We're going to talk more about him as we go through this, but oh my god.
Yeah. So basically, Vincent saw us all coming, right?
Yeah, he told the Shudrakians to stay and wait for when Subaru runs out of the town fleeing.
Yeah.
And he ridicules more about the way in which, you know, Subaru is trying to take the most convenient way out, right? He's like, you would rather value what your own eyes see. Like basically saying that like your opinions don't waver and you aren't listening to my wisdom. And, you know, like, you know, like, let's see what we're doing here. Yeah. And basically Subaru is kind of upset about this, in which he's like he mentions that the Empire right now is his own adversary, right? And he, you know, Vincent is kind of like saddened by the state of affairs as they currently are, that he like, even though like he acts like everything kind of dances the palm of his hand, right? Like he's like, no, like only people that I hold are, you know, the people around me. And like, because I couldn't convince the other people that I don't control my empire right now, you know?
Yeah. Well, we kind of skipped over this before. At some point during their first conversation in this phase, Abel does just fully explicitly state, I am the true emperor of Wallachia.
Yes, I am the king.
In the first chapter, at the end, he says this, yeah.
And Abel, like, this was something I was not expecting from his character, by the way, and neither was Subaru. Abel is fully admits that he failed. And he never, like, truly makes that attitude come across, but he in his words, said his failings are what lost him the throne. So he has a lot more humility than I thought he did.
Well, at least he can recognize that he
He's
made a
had fault.
mistake that cost him the throne.
And Subaru is now fully just an enemy of the Imperial soldiers. Abel makes the point to Subaru, you're not enemies with the soldiers of this city. You are enemies of the army of this nation. So,
yeah, and he could have told him that, but Subaru didn't want to listen to anything Abel was saying.
Exactly.
His words are like, a rainstorm is like easier to listen to than what my own words were to you.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, he essentially just says here that this was my lazy way of getting you on my side because I didn't want to go through the effort.
Yeah, because he realized that he wasn't listening. As I said before, he's like, you know, like you wouldn't listen to my wisdom because you only saw what was in front of you. You know, he kind of like, you know, Subaru. You know, he mentions the fact that you won't be safe anywhere in the Empire, right? But I also kind of wonder, and we'll talk about this real quick. I don't think Subaru realizes that he is technically not safe anywhere. Like, he will have a target on his back, he and his friends. Like, he's had time of peace, right? But, like, it's kind of naive for him to be like, I can just get rid of myself. I can, like, you know, abstain from the situation that I put myself in, you know, like, and I can just be free. Like, if I were to leave right now to the Empire, I wouldn't have, like, or to the Kingdom of Lugunica, I could just forget about this, right?
And as you kind of mentioned that, Gold, I think it's very interesting because we were talking about, like, his ideologies as a hero, right? Specifically as Rem's hero. I wonder if part of his identity and journey in this arc will be understanding that he can't run away from these conflicts, and so he has to be a heroic figure in them. Like, he has to act. He can't just be reactive anymore. He has to be active.
Isn't it kind of weird that this arc is also about not running away, and Rem is also going to be the person to tell him to not run away?
Yeah.
Yeah, again, I wonder if that will come together.
It's all coming together.
There's a lot of callbacks to Arc 2, especially in the beginning of this arc, that happen between Subaru and Rem to kind of reestablish those bonds that they have, even
really
with
like
Provincial Rem. Yeah, it's well done.
It never feels too self-referential. It just feels like a really nice tying moment in between these parts of the stories.
Yeah, it's a thematic callback. It's not actively referencing it. I think the conversation Subaru has with Amelia in Arc 4 is more of a direct reference to Rem's speech to him in Arc 2.
Yeah, definitely.
Where this feels it's just thematic callings to it, like re-hitting the points that brought them together in the first place.
And that makes sense because of the difference in time between those events, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So it flows really well. I'm really enjoying it.
The next thing that, you know, Abel's talking about is he pretty much wants a place to become his base for, like, his, like, coup of the current empire, right?
Yeah, the only ones he has on his side are the Shadrakians.
Yeah, the Shadrak, and he needs a base, right? A place that's defensible, a place that's good. And Grawl is pretty much the logical next step in all of this. And Subaru's like, what are you even talking about, right? And, like, they discuss the fact that, like, you know, in war, right, there's a 3-to-1 attacker defender ratio, right?
Yeah, he starts quoting the Sun Tzu's Art of War.
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. And, you know, there's a commander here that's a big shot in the city. His name is Zakir Osman, right?
Osman or Offman? I've been reading Offman in my head every time. It is Osman. Yeah, Zakir Osman.
Yeah, Zakir Osman. And
second class general? So
yes, second class.
Yeah, the highest rank normal people can achieve.
And you know, the thing is, you know, like, Vincent's like, he is a solid and boring strategist, but that actually isn't a bad thing here because the 3-to-1 attacker defender ratio is in his favor. So, like, even if he plays it super boring, like, he can make it through this siege, right? So there's alternatives to winning, right? But Subaru is like, I'm not gonna fight. I only want to go home with Rem, right?
Mm-hmm.
And this is where he explains a lot. Like, Flop is like, what?
Hey,
what
have you saw the hot women around here? I think that's how he comes into this place.
He literally says to Medium, yo, these girls have got abs like you do, girl. And she's like, yeah, abs.
Yeah, the place is great.
Just amazing.
I just love how Flop kind of interjects when he's like, hey, have you seen how awesome this place is? Like, check out the women.
Yeah, they're just like discussing like war plan, like really dead stuff, and they're just like, huh? But yeah, Vincent starts to mention that like the Capitol is using a fake that is remarkably similar to him, named Chisha Gold.
Gold.
Gold, me?
It's you.
Oh no, I'm the traitor. Yeah, but like Flop is against, attacking as well because he doesn't want to do anything that would bring misfortune to others, right? And Vincent's like, this is the land of the wolves. This is just the way it is, right? And Flop brings up a good point, which a good retort, which is just like, even in the land of the wolves, sheep must also live, right? Like, if it's all wolves, then how will anybody ever survive?
Yeah, so I think we skipped over that they are discussing on how to take the city.
Yes.
When Flop interjects for this part, he's making the point of like, hey, normal people live here too.
Right.
Like you can't do this and just murder everybody.
Notably, he also deduces that Abel is the emperor, by the way, like just randomly. He's just like, yeah, you know what? Husband sounds right. You kind of do seem like the emperor. And he still stands up to him on this point. And Abel then, after this, isn't angry with Flop's retort. He says, my argument was lazy, which is rather interesting.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because, like, we've all, like, hopefully most people who talk rhetorically, right, understand when they're being, like, reductive, right?
Yeah.
Like, Vincent realized that he's being reductive here in his, like, plan. So he's like, yeah, I can just, I'm doing this because I must. But then somebody's like, well, you could probably at least try not to, get unnecessary lives, right?
Yeah,
he's like,
Rem, Subaru, and Flop don't want everybody there to die. Flop doesn't want anyone to die. Subaru's kind of on that same side of nobody should have to. And Rem is kind of making the points in here of like, well, you can't just do this. That's going to result in people dead. You can't do this. That's going to result in people dead. And
yeah, basically Rem's like, have you ever heard of the trolley problem?
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. I thought the same thing here.
Yeah.
Especially towards Flop with it, where you have to, you're already involved. Your decision or indecision of revealing to Abel how the city's laid out, how they could sneak in, all the different entrances and exits, because he's been through it so many times and he has so many connections in there. Flop's decision to contribute to this plan of sieging the city, one way or the other, will result in more people's lives being taken.
Yeah, no matter what he chooses, people will die. And as Abel recognizes that Flop has this information, Abel's willing to negotiate. He thinks that he can break Flop down. And then Flop says, even if my head is split open, I will not back down. And Subaru relives his trauma.
Yep. Like, don't say that. Don't joke on that.
Don't you dare fucking say that. Then, as we talked about, Rem kind of... What have you ever heard of the trolley problem? Like, none of these answers are correct. Even Flop. Because, Subaru's like, Flop's a good person. He's doing the right thing here. And Rem even posits to him, is this the right thing to do? And they kind of talk about, this is not the correct path, and neither is this. And Subaru then mentions to Rem what he thought about her trying to escape, and he starts to break down and cry and says that, please don't abandon me. You're the only person I have here. I'm so alone and scared. Rem just straight up says, I wasn't planning to abandon you. And then she asks the question that makes Rem's hero her hero. Can you solve this? Is there a way... What is your answer to this question? One that doesn't lead to bloodshed and doesn't turn this into a battle. It's a pipe dream. But it's one that Rem's hero can make a reality. He is, powered by this question Rem asks him, and, the way she leans on him in this way. It completely changes Subaru's attitude. And he just, he does his regular hero Subaru moment to Rem, and he's like, I've got a plan for the bloodless siege of, fuck, I'm so bad with the name of the city. Can you say it again?
Guarol.
Guarol.
Gua, like Gua.
Guarol.
Guarol. Like a dinner roll.
Guarol.
Okay.
And he can do this with the help of Abel and Flop.
Yes.
Yeah.
You don't say. With their help specifically, huh?
Maybe,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, they have a lot of things. They have a lot of different knowledge that they can come together and use.
They have a lot of skills. They have a skill set.
Yeah. You look at them both side by side and just like look at them really hard, and then you just really meditate on it for a while, right?
Mm-hmm.
Just like burn their images into your head, and then like, you know, just
put them in a filter.
Put it in a filter. Be alone for a while, and yeah. Either way, we'll get on that because it's a very important part, right? Where Rem finally confesses all that, or at least like asks him a question, like relies on him for the first time, like ever.
Yeah, she comes to him. She trusts him to come up with a solution here,
and
like hoping that he's telling the truth.
And the thing is, right? There's two layers to this, right? Subaru realizes that him being pathetic here is unfair to Rem, and that he's feeling like he's burdening her with the weakness that is all of Nazi Subaru, right? Like, he doesn't feel good about it. But he knows that, you know, like, he has to be honest here to make sure that Rem can trust him, right? And that appeal kind of gets through to her, even though Rem starts, like, you know, like, Rem would understand that, like, asking something so absurd as, can you fix this? A situation like this, that Subaru has all the right to, like, be angry at her, like him, right? Or be angry at her about it. But yeah, Subaru feels the sense of duty, and then awakened once again is that feeling of becoming Rem's hero.
Yeah, he has to live up to her. She can't see him give up again because he's never willing to do that to her again. He'll lay out the problems. He'll confess that he feels awful, but he's not willing to give up.
He's not going to
go around her anymore. And
exactly.
She makes sure of that.
And Subaru's learning that it's all right to be vulnerable and like say these things to people. He's learning to balance it, right? He can't rely on everybody all the time 100%, but he also can't solve everything all by himself, you know?
Because I think a lot of people misunderstand. I think, especially for like some very casual anime watchers, when you're watching Subaru as a character, regardless of all like his issues as a person and how he grows, a lot of people criticize Subaru in terms of he's like a crybaby, or he's like, why is he getting so emotional about these things? But Subaru has been through a lot, and he is rightfully very scared a lot of the time. So it's really nice to see him, as the series goes on, be more comfortable with being vulnerable with people, because that doesn't mean he's giving up.
I don't actually know if that's truly the case. Rem has, ever since she gave him the full confession, she's always been the one that he is willing to be super vulnerable in front of. He even admits as much to the witches in Arc 4 that, like, I can be, like, super vulnerable and lay out everything to you and you alone. But when he does that to Amelia, he feels super ashamed of himself. Same with, like, Otto or Garfield. He doesn't want to let them ever see him be that weak and pathetic. He has this impression, this persona that he takes on around everyone except for Rem. And even this in Provincial one, he's been consistently willing to be vulnerable and admit everything flat out to her this arc.
Yeah. I think...
Okay, let's get on to the very important chapter.
Look, I know you're saying that sarcastically, but I still love this chapter itself of Zakir Osman.
The
first named chapter of the arc.
Yeah, baby.
The womanizer, second-class general of the Walachian Empire, Zakir Osman.
Yeah, man. And he is, because he's such a womanizer and he grew up around a lot of sisters, right? He's more sympathetic to an all-women tribe, like the Shudrakians, right?
He is drunk on respect women juice.
Yeah, he respects them so much that he would, he would try to persuade them. Even the Capitals want to kill him immediately. But he will generously just wait for the reinforcements to arrive, and then he will crush them if they don't listen to it,
It's honestly very funny because... as he like describes himself in this chapter as like the opposite of what you would imagine a womanizer is. Like, he's a womanizer in the sense of he worships women to the like highest degree. He doesn't treat women as objects. He treats them as an object of worship. It's so funny.
Yeah, women
He's
are
the
better
guy
than
from
that.
the meme that yells out "All women are queens."
Yes.
Yeah.
But genuinely means it.
Yes.
history? Don't you mean her story?
Mhm.
Yeah, that's Zakir Osman.
Also,
Yeah.
if you haven't seen the art of this man,
Oh
look
my
him
God.
up. It's the
Yeah, I've seen
goofiest
it.
design ever. He's got a
Yeah.
big old like red afro and a mustache. It looks so
Yeah, it's
silly.
He's so funny. But yeah, as Goldmez was mentioning, he's like, I'll give these Shudrak people a chance to swear fealty. And he kind of mentions how he looks up to the Emperor because he like swore away war as like a foolish thing. Not like
He
a
sees-
moral wrong, just a foolish thing.
Yeah, he sees the emperor as like the wisest person in the world, like
Yeah.
the one who you should always listen to. And
Yeah.
obviously, because he posted him there, that meant that he's exactly where he's supposed to be.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then we learn, he learns like, oh shit, my camp's been destroyed by the Shudrakians. I love women. I don't want to kill them, but I'll have to for my emperor.
Yeah, exactly.
So he locks down the city because he's worried of an attack. As the city is getting dour and the populace are
getting
on the point
unrest,
of rebelling. Yeah. A traveling group of entertainers arrive in the city.
We gotta raise the army's morale.
Yeah.
Yeah, all women entertainers too.
Yeah.
Yes,
this
exactly.
is perfect. This is what Zakir
perfect.
Osman and this city need. And
This will bring the soldiers' morale up and make sure that the people of the town know that everything is okay.
Yeah.
It's great. Let's invite them in right now.
yeah, he hears like from his subordinate, who he's revealed too much information to, by the way, that this traveling group of entertainers, they're making the city really happy. And I'm really sad to tell you this, sir, but the troops, they're unhappy with your command too. They even say you are what did they say? Nothing, sir. So yeah, we get these girls in. So we've all got the situation set up. We're gonna have this lovely feast with my generals. We're gonna really raise the morale here. A black-haired Danus starts dancing after being announced by this musician, claiming her to be like this amazing dancer from beyond the great waterfall. And Zakir is enraptured by this woman. Like, the way this woman moves, Zakir's already feeling it. And then this woman stares into his eyes. And Zakir just, like, fully surrenders his soul to her at this point. She starts approaching him, and Zakir's like, oh my god, she saw me. And she draws his sword from him. And at first he's like, oh, is she going to do a cool sword dance? And then she puts it to his neck and talks in a male voice and says, you've lost, Zakir Osman. And at this moment, like the text like hints at, and we know as we go into the next chapter, Zakir Osman knows this is Vincent Valakia, the Emperor.
It's honestly a super well done chapter to explain what the plan is, how it succeeded, how Vincent knowing who was there would lend itself to that success. Subaru's
and
obviously behind this.
Right. We know that the reason why they let them in. We know like who these people are. Oh, and all women like entertainers. Yeah, it makes sense. Oh, it's all peaceful. They did this. They figured it out a way to do this peacefully. So now that we have all that, like subtle, like subtextual, like information that we can
super
infer,
well done of show don't tell.
Yeah, we don't need to have any more.
What are you talking about? Readers are stupid. Let's spend 3 chapters explaining how we got there.
And
genuinely, I don't even want to cover 90% of this.
I think
one
we
scene
should
I think
just not
is
talk
worth
about it.
discussing.
Yeah, we can talk about seeing. I don't know which one you want to talk about.
The only thing I wanted to point out was like the dressing room scene when our 2 favorite boys make their appearance again here. That's like along this way, right?
Yeah.
Okay. The silence made me think I spoiled something by accident.
Yeah, I was just thinking of how to continue it. We kind of... So, I'm not going to go very in-depth with these chapters, because you obviously, from the subtext of the previous chapters, and if you've read this, we don't really have too much to talk about here, but I wanted to mention a couple funny moments, because I thought they were cute.
Yeah, 100%.
So, Subaru basically just bashes out Abel, and says that your plan is stupid, and that your plan to poison is also stupid. And he just points out to Abel that, well, I think he points out to himself that Abel has like this policy of minimal sacrifices, right? He will use as little human resources as possible. Subaru has a policy of no sacrifice. And so that's where their big opposition comes from. Whereas Abel's willing to give a little bit on that, Subaru is not. And so his solution to that is to have a bloodless siege where they sneak in as unassuming women there to entertain the people, and they capture the commander to win.
Yep.
As we see, it works. But
as a point, both Vincent and Subaru, as well as Flop, are all in drag, along with two of the Shudrakians, I believe, accompany them here.
Yeah, it's Tarita and Kuna.
That's right, it was Kuna. Okay. Going in dressed up, and for those of you who didn't know, Subaru going into drag is not a new thing.
No.
There is a side content back from after Arc 4, before Arc 5, where he kind of establishes this femsona version of himself for the first time.
Honestly, this through line is interesting. I don't know what to say about it wholly yet, but I'll just say that it's interesting that like these themes pop up in this arc as well. Like an entire female village, and then like everyone dressing in drag, like to save the day. It's like weird.
It gives me the impression. Oh, sorry.
I think the plan of doing this is actually something from Japanese history.
Yes, it is. Subaru mentions that in the chapter. It's like part of a book in a story where a general won by cross-dressing and getting into the chambers of the opposing general. But the main thing here I kind of wanted to talk about in terms of like the thematics of it a little bit at least was I very much find it intriguing how Subaru acts as this Natsumi Schwartz character.
Yeah, Natsumi Schwartz.
He basically embodies everything about himself that is good to perfection and doesn't allow his mistakes or his humanity in. This is like the perfect version of Subaru.
He really does go for it. Like this is the most charming Subaru can be.
Yeah,
like at any point.
It's full method acting too.
Yes, this is also only in text, so it's hard to tell if this maintains. But from my understanding, like unless he's actively mentions that he's not doing it, I believe he's constantly talking in a femme voice the entire time.
It's mentioned in the text as well. That he's talking in a femme voice, and not even just in a femme voice, in the femme way of speaking in Japanese too.
Yeah, he switches pronouns.
The only thing that he fails on sometimes is referring to himself as Boku, I think, a couple times.
Yes, but that's not necessarily a failure. Echidna used Boku exclusively for most of Arc 4.
But that's just a thing to note. Subaru like completely embodies this idea of this woman. And like from a thematic standpoint, it very much feels to me like this section of the story is kind of almost Subaru getting in touch with his femininity a bit.
There's a degree to that.
Yeah.
What Natsumi exists for within this story will be explored more in Phase 3. So I'm not going to speak much on it.
Okay, I figure.
Yeah, that's what I thought too. But aside from that, a couple funny moments, unless you have something else to say, Gold, before I move on.
No, yeah, we'll go over the Jamal stuff. And,
Rem thinks it's stupid. It's the only other thing I have to bring up here.
Yeah. Rem is like, this is the dumbest plan I have ever heard of. But Subaru's quick on his feet. He's like, I've heard this guy is called the Womanizer. This is how we attack. And Abel is like, yo, this is a great plan. Genius tactics of the past only worked because you did what the enemy did not expect you to do. So yeah, they all get into makeup.
Subaru's weirdly good at it.
Subaru is weirdly good at it. Flop becomes Flora, and we have this really funny moment where Medium finds him and is like, "Big bro was my big sis all along."
I'm so happy she's stupid. I don't know. I can't explain it. It just makes me thrilled that she's dumb.
It's so fucking charming. I won't lie. And yeah, they hurry along this plan because Abel says, "Oh shit, the capital's sending reinforcements. We need to hurry this along." And Tarita is like hesitant about this plan because she doesn't want to be involved with it. And Mazelda, the chief, and her sister's like, "No, this is an amazing idea. We're doing this."
Based Mazelda.
Mazelda is so
conversation. Mazelda's great.
And when Subaru comes out as Natsumi Schwartz for the first time, the entire Shudrak, like, just go, like, speechless. And Subaru earlier says something to Mazelda along the lines of beauty can be made. And Mazelda's confused. She doesn't understand what that means. And then Subaru walks out as Natsumi Schwartz, and literally she starts clapping. She starts applauding. And she's like, beauty can be made. And it's like this amazing, really wholesome moment. But yeah, we kind of move into the city. They ingratiate themselves with the populace. But before we do that, the one last really funny moment before Jamal I wanted to mention was that Subaru seduces the city guard at the gate. Like, he full on seduces this captain. Like, uses every bit of information that this guy gives him to, like, make him just completely let them in. Like, not even consider them a threat. He mentions how this city is really sad because the Imperial Army has got like an iron fist on it, and he, like, as a member of the city and a city guard that's not affiliated with them, he's frustrated with it. And then Natsumi mentions, oh yeah, they captured me once and tortured me and put a foot in my mouth. And the guard's like, ugh, those fuckers, how dare they do this to this beautiful woman? And Natsumi like brushes up against him and whispers into his ear, seduces him fully, and they just go in. One thing, last note before Jamal, Bianca, or Abel's persona, he can't speak in a femme voice, so Flop and Subaru are the ones that have to gather information.
All Vincent can do is just have the presence about themselves here.
Yeah, and dance amazingly. And as he mentions, not as good as his dead sister. Yikes. Yeah, so they get in.
Which one? Oh, I know which one he's talking about.
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure I know which one too.
Yeah. I think I know what he's talking
about. I don't think you do.
Oh, I don't? Okay.
I don't think you do.
So they get in and they've gotten really popular with the community, and then they're settling down their tavern, they're relaxing. The Shudrakians have gotten rid of their dress up and are just back in their underwear, basically. And then they hear, like, Abel's like, there's movement. And who would barge in but our good buddy Jamal? And he's back,
Jamal!
baby. And he's here to womanize on Natsumi? What?
Yeah, he is into Natsumi. Oh my god. I felt uncomfortable in her shoes here.
There was some sexual tension in this chapter, like, genuinely. It was weird. I was uncomfortable.
Jamal's got good taste, even if he doesn't have the right approach.
He does.
He knows the best in the room.
If he treated the lady as a gentleman, maybe he would have a better way with it. But
he's very aggressive with what he wants. You know?
Yeah,
that's the type of guy.
But he grabs Natsumi by the throat and is like,
"Hey man,
yeah, you're going to be performing for our commander, and you're going to go do it right now." And Natsumi goes to, like, resist, and he's like, "You're a weak woman. You're not even. You're actually really afraid, aren't you?" And then Abel comes out as Bianca, and he's like, "Oh, that's a real woman. She's not even afraid. Come on, let's go."
Todd is also there. I just want to make that point that he is there and present.
Yes,
he's just not involved.
He's just not involved.
Well, that's the reason why Subaru's.
Yeah, that's why Subaru is so scared, and what Jamal is on. I don't think Subaru could care less about Jamal actually being on him like that.
That happens later. That doesn't actually happen now.
Okay.
Subaru's actually afraid of Jamal in this moment, just because of Jamal's aggressive moves, I think, rather than him.
Right. Okay, that makes sense.
So they enter the banquet that they've been prepared to, and Tarita starts to break under the pressure and stress, and Abel calms her down and shows that he's, like, really is a true leader. And Zakir does not look the part of a strong warrior. Yeah, if you've seen his character design, it is very charming, but he does not look like a warrior. So what ends up happening is that Subaru is used as a distraction by Abel to distract all of the soldiers while they start to set up the banquet. And he runs across Todd as he's coming out of the bathroom. And he starts to panic really hard. And then gives the excuse to Todd that it was Jamal treating him roughly. That's why he's so afraid of the soldiers. And Todd starts to lay into Jamal for making ladies afraid of him.
It's interesting, for sure.
And they walk away. So yeah, they pull off the plan. And the reason it works really well is not just because of Zakir's womanizing, it's also because they put a lot of alcohol into these men. They are very drunk. It goes without a hitch, and Abel tells Subaru that because he's not doing anything in the active participation and capturing of everyone, go burn the flag at the top of the fortress, please.
Yeah.
And he's like, okay, shit, I'll do it. Why not? He burns.
Natsumi sure goes up and does that.
Natsumi does that. And then... okay, so Zakir, just doesn't resist because he wants to spare his men's life, and he hates needless casualties. He's
also realized that this is the Emperor.
Yeah, but again, as we said, he knows this is the Emperor, and he also knows that the Emperor shares the same ideas as him. At least that's what he thinks. So he just completely goes along with it. Subaru burns the flag at the top of the fortress. Everyone sees it, and all of the soldiers in the city surrender. But we switch to our good friend Todd's perspective. And under the orders of Zakir, they're filling holes in the wall. It's not a glorious job, but it's a job to protect the city.
I genuinely wonder if they are being punished for being aggressive to the women and have to go and fix the wall.
I think they are. Yeah, that's my interpretation of it because of how Zakir loves women, right?
Yeah, you're right. That makes sense.
So that's going on, and Todd turns around and sees the smoke and realizes the flag of the Sword Wolf is on fire and the city has been taken. And he just says to Jamal, "The commander's dead. Everyone's dead." And he sees Natsumi burn the flag, and then he puts it together. It's you.
Yeah.
It's that poster child of war. Now, I feel
child of war.
I feel like this is going to come up more because I feel like this is some sort of cultural title within Wallachia of some sort.
At every bend, I see your face mockingly.
When you think Natsumi can't hurt you, but it's actually Subaru. He sees it happen, and he gets that immediate flash of fear, and he's like, "Jamal, everyone's dead. We're not dying for this. We're leaving." But then he's also like, "Damn, you're good. You're really good. I'll call you Natsumi for now."
Well, he doesn't know the name Subaru, so he knows that this is the same person.
Yeah,
but only knows the name Natsumi Schwartz.
So he's like, I'll call you Natsumi for now, and calls him the poster child of war. Now, I'm curious to see what that means, because that seems to have some sort of reverence to the title. I
mean, that does just have the general meaning of the representation that you give the public for what that means.
Yeah, you're the flag burner.
Poster child.
Yeah.
Oh, so Subaru's the perfect propaganda, almost, right?
Effectively, yes. If you, it's like the Uncle Sam sort of thing.
Oh, like the recruitment posters, yeah.
Kind of, yeah. This is the kid you put on the posters to encourage people to go and fight. Except in this case, it's because Natsumi is so effective and deadly that this is the representation of the soldiers themselves and the war, and just basically saying that Natsumi is the definition of the enemy and the personification of combat and death itself. There's a term in English, I think, right? It's firebrand, right?
Okay.
The idea is that it's based around this idea that when you burn a nation's flag, you're declaring war on them. So it makes sense that he's seeing this being oh, you're declaring war on the empire. I see.
Oh, so he's literally seeing Natsumi as the poster of rebellion.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
Okay. That's really cool. Thank you for that added detail, guys.
The face of the people, because to Todd's perspective, he's fighting on the Emperor's side.
Yeah.
And they were just trying to recruit a group. Then this random person comes in, gets their entire camp burnt down, recruits that group themselves, infiltrates the city, and declares war on the Empire.
Oh my god, so to Todd's mind, Natsumi, or not as he knows him, but Subaru, is literally this evil mastermind that's the leader of this rebellion, and she's got everything in her pockets, and she's
the mastermind of this rebellion.
That's so fucking funny. Todd's like, "We're getting out of here, Jamal. Let's, that hole I plugged up? Let's unplug it and get out of here." And they flee for their lives. After this, everyone congratulates Subaru, but he noticeably does not change his outfit or the persona.
Even though the other two do.
Yeah, even though everyone else does. Abel starts to panic because after he's, completely, Zakir Osman just knows what's going on, and he fully swears to the Emperor again, and he's going to help. And then Abel panics because he hears that the capital's reinforcements have arrived. So he screams to get the gate shut, and then like this void like appears out of the door of this banquet that's just been blown open. And
isn't Louis freaking out first?
Yeah, Louis cries, and then she's pointing to like nothing, right?
Yeah. And Mazelda is like gets ready to fight. She senses something. And then she gets set alight. She's like burning alive, and it's extremely painful. And
she got like entire body engulfed in fire, like in an instant.
It's like instant combustion, right?
And spontaneous.
Yes, that's the one. And some of her tribe members are like throwing water on her, but even like Subaru notes, even though the fire's out, she suffered an immense amount of pain. And then this female opponent appears. Someone called Arakaya is the name, I think.
I've always said Arakia.
Arakia. Okay. Arakia. Yeah. And clearly she has some sort of history with Abel.
This is a little dog person as well. Yeah. Little dog girl.
Little dog girl.
Young dog. A short dog woman is what this is supposed to be.
Yeah.
But Otsuka went and overdid that again.
Yeah, as he does.
That's all I'll say about that.
Yeah.
Best girl has arrived. I'm angering
fighting words right at the end here, huh, Gold?
But
poster
honestly,
child of arguments.
I have no reason to be upset about this character. In fact, the opposite. So I'm interested to understand why you dislike this character. Seems good to me.
So we'll discuss that a bit after we wrap this up. But she's a first-class general. And not only is she a first-class general, she's second in the rankings of first-class general. She's the second strongest person in the country. She blows everyone to the ground with a literal tornado, and Rem goes to attack her to save Abel, which is a very Rem thing to do. The general just completely stops her. Like, Rem thinks she's destroyed her, but she's just stopped. And she's like, "Oh, you're an Oni. I'm not gonna kill one of my people." I'm like, "Huh? What?" And then fucking Subaru's like, "I have to save Rem. I'm Natsumi, but I have to save Rem." Rushes, goes to try and save her. And who should appear? But Priscilla Barriel-sama herself.
Priscilla on the scene.
Yeah. And
at the right time.
The Yang sword is blazing red.
Yeah.
This is the one thing I took a note for this one, of her showing up and saying, "No need to say your name, fool. I, however, will permit you to say mine."
That's stupid.
That's the most Priscilla entrance ever.
Whatever. Yeah.
And
but that's amazing.
That's where we end phase 2.
My goodness.
Overall thoughts, gentlemen.
I think it's a little bit of a letdown overall from phase 1, but it has a much higher high point in the city of Guarl.
I would agree. I wouldn't agree as extremely with it being a letdown. I don't think the structural issues ruin the phase for me.
A lot of the good stuff, yeah.
But I definitely felt the structural issues. Like, it is a genuine critique that should...
If I focused too hard on a lot of the chapters that I felt like, okay, I can skim through this a little bit faster, right? I would probably hate it a lot more, right? But and I understand if it feels like it kind of gets the wings clipped a bit, right? Like, it's going on like a really high like point, and then it kind of just like slows down
too close
like
to the
pretty
sun.
rapidly. Yeah. And then it like tries to kick back up again, but then it like kicks its momentum again, and you're like, okay. But I'm interested in seeing what the next phase looks like.
Yeah.
I assume that because we're like in the middle of this like conflict, I'm sure we're gonna get that resolved towards the beginning, and then we're gonna get some fallout on that.
Yeah.
Well, like, here's kind of the point I wanted to make here, is that like this whole plan that Subaru put together, and we got 3 chapters of like rebuild up back to, was just to make sure that there was like no casualties here. But just like when he first gets to Guarl and Todd is there, and it wasn't something he anticipated, even though he could have anticipated it, and it wound up with him getting killed a few times, and he had to adapt to that. Here is another situation where his plan went through almost without a hitch, but he overlooked another detail. Do either of you think that this is going to successfully be a bloodless siege, Or are we going to see some casualties here? Like some permanent ones?
It's interesting.
I don't think we'll see permanent casualties yet. I think that's going to happen in this arc. Genuinely, I do. I don't think it will happen yet. I think
I mean, Griselda's been torched entirely.
She has,
even if it was for a small amount of time.
But she's not dead. Like, obviously, she's been injured terribly, and it's really painful. But it's not like a permanent death, at least from how it was presented to me.
Well, to me, I think wherever Priscilla is, Al is close behind.
Yeah,
and I think at that point they can probably altogether fend off, or at least to like a standstill, and then it's gonna be like one of those like anime moments where it's like, I'll get you next time.
Yeah,
maybe for the major characters, I wasn't asking, but is this something where even like some of the soldiers or like a background Shudrak we haven't met yet or something? Is literally every single person in the city going to survive this encounter?
I don't know. I
don't know. The siege might be like, it depends on what's going on.
Genuinely, like the way I'm seeing it, I could see it either way. Like I wouldn't like be annoyed if that would happen, but I honestly feel like that part of the arc has a little bit of waiting time before that really hits. At least
the blood needs some time to heat up, before it's spilled.
Yeah, we need some of that. We need some boiling before we get to
like sewer blood spilled. I understand. Like, I think the thing is, right? They're gonna be like, oh, the place is captured in 3-1 advantage. We actually don't have it anymore because the reinforcements are reinforcing, not the city. The city is under control now, so there's no point in trying to attack it, right? I think that might happen, and they'll be like, okay, you have to go back to capital and replan, regroup, that type of thing.
Yeah, I don't know if we'll see any permanent casualties. If we do, again, like, it's not like it'd be an unexpected thing, like out of wazoo. Like, I could see that happening. I just don't know if this is the right time in the story to introduce
it might kneecap a bit of what Super's talking about, but then again, like, I don't know, maybe that's important, because then Priscilla's going to be like, haha, you need to be more pragmatic, right?
Yeah.
Or is that just a point in favor of Abel then, being able to say, like, it was stupid of you to think we would get through this without bloodless. This is war.
Actually,
you just
but to be fair, though, like, in hindsight,
like,
this isn't really
actually,
this isn't fully just like an overlook from Subaru. They knew this was going to happen, but they didn't know the timeline of that.
Vincent agreed that this was a decent idea. So, like, I don't think he's going to be like, well, we were both stupid. Maybe he'll say we're both stupid, but then, like, at that point, it's something you can at least share in, right?
Yeah.
It's like, we both had a good idea.
I don't think Abel's calling Subaru stupid for the plan. I think I can't actually say, it's just trying to posit the thought of whether Subaru gets away with succeeding with saving everybody again, or is this finally the time where that doesn't get to happen?
Again,
we might build up to it.
Yeah, I can see either way here. This is the thing. I don't know if I can give a definitive answer here. This isn't even me being afraid to give an answer. I don't
actually
know.
Here's the thing, right? I think it's going to be a thing where Subaru is going to have to die again in a scenario in which he dies and has to live with his mistake, right? Like, if it happens in this arc, that's fine, but I think it would be better if it builds up to another scenario like this, where he's like, oh, I have to choose between saving people and not saving people. And then he dies and realizes that his foolhardiness and trying to go with the save everybody plan causes, like, oh, you just have to live with you failed.
Yeah, because I feel like it hits more if this plan succeeds and then he tries a similar plan again and then it fails.
That's fair. The other kind of question I wanted to pose in kind of a similar vein is, with all of the other non-witch cult enemies Subaru has come up with against so far, whether they're properly antagonistic or just someone who is like just on the opposite side of a conflict, he's won them over and befriended them at some point. Do you see that eventually happening with Todd?
The thing is, they're misunderstood. So the misunderstanding is interesting. I think there's a chance that Todd is just like so much of a force of nature and too far down the enemy rabbit hole that it becomes like a fated duel that they have to be like, okay, one of us has to die. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or we have to finally best your demons, right? But there might be a point where it's like they meet Todd's fiance and we've learned more about Jamal, and Jamal's like, yeah, you have to really save him, right? You have to save him from himself. And then it gets to that point. That'd be interesting. Same thing with these divine generals. I have no doubt that they're all going to be people that we become more sympathetic to.
Yeah, I can see Subaru winning over some like divine generals possibly in the future. With how this phase has treated Todd and how specifically Subaru calls him an enemy, and he calls him like that genuinely for the first, like he calls someone that for the first time, that has meaning. I don't think that's going to go away.
Yeah.
I think this is definitely going to be a non-reconcilable thing, because I feel like Subaru could get to the point where he could reconcile, because he says in this phase directly he doesn't hate Todd. He's just afraid of him.
Exactly.
But Todd, I don't think could reconcile that. That's the impression I get from him, at least at the moment. I don't think he could do that, because he talks about how he views the world, and he says that all humans are stupid, and they're stupid for not realizing they're stupid. It's almost like he's looking down on people, and he has that superiority that he feels. I feel like he wouldn't be able to say that
he comes to his own conclusions and then won't let them go. You know what I mean? That's the type of person he is. Like he has an instinct that's usually really sharp, but once he's formed that instinct, it's like nobody can make him let go of it but himself, you know?
And with these psychopath vibes I'm getting, I don't know if he actually feels genuine empathy either, right? Like, so I don't know if there could be a true situation where he reconciles that. Do you know what I mean?
I just wanted to deposit those two to you, the anticipation for where we go here next.
I'm excited. So on this episode of Connor finally gets to talk to his friend about Arc 7.
Yes.
We had a good time, I think.
Yeah.
We got to talk about a lot. This phase was really fun to discuss. We had some really high highs, a couple low lows, but overall, I had lots of fun. I'm really excited to see how this leads into the next phase of the arc. And to discuss it with you guys. Not on the next episode, but on the episode after the next episode for everyone watching.
Probably.
Yeah.
Unless we dive straight into it, because we are quite passionate at the moment.
All right. Well, that being said, thank you all for listening. Thank you for stopping by, and feel free to watch any of the rest of our topics and podcast episodes.
Yeah.
Or check out some of our, Arc 5 reading stuff if you ever want a refresher on all that because of the new season coming out. We also have some topic discussions about in our other podcast about many different things about ReZero that you might like to listen to on your free time if you haven't already. Thank you all for listening. I'm Gold. I'm Gold, and please take care, everybody.
Yeah, take care, everyone. I hope you will have a wonderful day or evening wherever you are. And please comment. Tell us how you felt about this episode and the contents of this phase. We want to hear it. We really do.
Thank you all so much for listening. This has been the ReZero podcast again, and we will see you all next time.
Goodbye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.